283 Yada Yahowah. Azab, separation. 6. Sha'aruwr, horrible. As bad as it gets. At the conclusion of the last chapter, in the midst of yet another brutal assessment of the insidious effect of Judaism, Yisra'el was offered a ray of hope. The worst of the whorish behavior poisoning the people was somewhat isolated and attributed to Ephraim, even though the sickening nature of their religion had infected the entire nation. God revealed, in the house, Ba'ath of Yisra'el, Yisra'el, I have seen, something horrible, shocking, defiling, and dreadful, well beyond the scope of reason, Sha'aruwr. Ephraim's, Ephraim, religious prostitution and immoral whoredom is there, shams and youth. Those who contend with God, Yisra'el, are so defiled and polluted, they are unfit, tame. Hosea 6:10. Yahowah then went on to explain that one of their number, Yahweh, the beloved of Yah, would be spared. However, Gam, for you, Otter, the beloved of Yahweh, and in gathering and harvest, Katsa, is appointed and fixed in time, Shith, during which, I will restore the fortunes, Shabuw'ah, of my people, Ameni. Hosea 6:11. This is especially encouraging because Ameni, my people, is inclusive of Yisra'el and represents more than just Yahweh. Therefore, Yahowah must be working on 284 a cure, an antidote for the religious poison Ephraim has spread throughout the land. When I restore and heal, rapha any as I cure and repair, promoting the restoration of Yisra'el, individuals who will engage and endure with God, then the religious corruptions and societal perversity, aown, the consequence of being wrong, the cultural iniquity, distortions, and depravity, of Ephraim, worthless ash, will be revealed, will be exposed and made known, uncovered, and openly displayed, especially the misery inflicted by the misguided citizens, the horrible suffering and injurious circumstances caused by the evil shepherds and troublesome community, of Shomarown, Samaria, observant, the capital city of the northern kingdom. This is because, they devise and perpetrate, they plot, prepare, and deal in, misleading lies, false perceptions, and mistaken beliefs, sheqer, vain and useless frauds and contrived oratory. As a result, the thief and slave trader, Waganaf, the robber and kidnapper, will come, will arrive to pursue them. Bandits will raid, stripping them bare, Gadud Pashat, marauding militants will remove everything, including their clothing, in the streets and public places, right out in the open. Hosea, he saves, Hosea 7:1. We were right. Yahowah is going to restore Yisrael by exposing the aown, religious corruptions and societal perversions that Ephraim has inflicted through their troublesome shepherds and misguided beliefs. This is the first step of the cure. So Yahowah is emphatically stating that the reason that his people have suffered under the Assyrians, Babylonians, Romans, Roman Catholics, Muslims, Nazis, 285 and now, progressives is because of their mistaken beliefs and false perceptions. This is why they have been kidnapped, robbed, enslaved, and stripped naked. The most effective and enduring way to resolve a problem of this magnitude, of a pervasive cultural malignancy of this consequence, is to identify the cause and acknowledge it openly. And yet, currently, indeed for the past 2,500 years, there has not been any Israelite willing to hold the religious myth which were assimilated into Judaism, and facilitated the ascension of the rabbis, accountable for the misery Jews have endured. While it is uncommon for those who are suffering to accept responsibility, Yisra'el was in a unique position. Yahowah had consistently disclosed through his prophets that the duplicitous integration of religion into the culture would be the disease that separated them. Yisrael's long walk through the valley of death would be a result of not only choosing to be religious instead of engaging in the relationship Yahowah intended, but of flaunting their whorish behavior in God's face. There is but one viable cure, a mirror. This one would be comprised of words. God is revealing what he sees, and has seen, in his people, and he is showing them how they appear. Some will look at his depiction of them, accept it as accurate, reject Judaism, and begin anew with Yahowah. They will engage in a manner consistent with his appeal and join Yahweh in the final harvest. Exposure therapy, helping people perceive and accept, then confront the source of their problems, is the central plank of modern psychology, just as it is manifest within the Torah. Indeed, we find a dramatic example of this in one of the Torah's most misunderstood stories, that of looking upon the fiery serpent to live. There was a reason that the children of Israel endured 40 years in the wilderness before being allowed 286 into the promised land. After liberating them from Miriam, the crucibles of religious and political oppression, it became apparent that they had not left the East behind but, instead, had packed up and carried the plagues with them. They were worse than ungrateful, the Yisra'elites were miserable companions. They were cantankerous, unreceptive, and completely unreliable. In the time that passed from their release during Chag Matzah to the Torah's revelation on Shabuw'ah, the children of Yisrael were busy crafting replicas of their oppressors' gods. And even with Yahowah ending the lives of the religious among his people, Yisraelites continued to piss and moan. The point Yahowah is making in this transition from the 6th to 7th chapters of Hosea is so essential to the redemption of his people, that we are going to linger here a while longer and consider the importance of exposure therapy. To this end, in the opening chapter of the Azab volume, we read, "In trouble, Sarah, in distress and anguish, in the midst of very unfavorable circumstances and adversity, you called out, Kara, you issued a summons and offered an invitation, and, I rescued and withdrew you, Shalat, I removed and delivered you while equipping and preparing you, invigorating you. I responded and answered you, Anna Otter, I replied to you, within a veiled covering, Bar-Sether, and with a thunderous shout, Ram, with a loudly spoken declaration. I discovered your nature and assessed your merit, Bachanotta, I found out who you actually are, at Al, the waters of Maim, Meribah, contentious complaining, Meribah, the place of strife and dispute, of quarreling and provocation, commonly transliterated Meribah. Pause now and reflect, weighing this in the 287 balance and then consider what was acquired and then rejected, Selah. Mizmor 81-7. Listen, my people, Shama am Eni, hear me, my family, because I want to testify to restore and sustain you, Bar-Otter, it is my will to help you, my desire to relieve and aid you, holding you up, returning you. Yisra'el, individuals who struggle and contend with God and those who engage and endure with the Almighty, if only, you would have listened to me, Shama la Eni, Mizmor 81-8, there would not exist, higher, among you, Bar, a strange or foreign, illegitimate and different, Zah, God, El. And you would not make pronouncements on behalf of or bow down to, Walochor la, you would not say anything that would cause anyone to venerate or worship, a foreign god, El Nekar, to approach a pagan or alien deity. Mizmor 81-9, I am, Anki, Yahowah, your God, Elohim Otter, the one who lifted you up, Otter, the one who carried you away, from, Min, the realm, Eres of the religious and political oppressors, Miraim, of the despots and tyrants within the cauldrons of military and economic subjugation, the authority figures in the place of coercive cruelty where slaves are confined and restricted by political persecution. Choose to joyfully open, Rahab, of your own initiative, happily widen and enlarge, your mouth, Otter, and I will fill it with satisfying proclamations, Male Hugh. Mizmor 81-10. But, my people, Ameni, have not listened, Lo Shama, to the sound of my voice, La Kaoleni. And, Yisra'el, has been unwilling to accept me, Lo Abar La Eni, were not receptive and did not agree. Mizmor 81-11. 288 And so, I let them go away, Shalakhu, I set them free, releasing them, in their stubbornness and recalcitrance, the unyielding resistance of their adversarial attitude, Bar-Sheriruv-Labhem, with their unwillingness to change the hardness of their hearts which makes them argumentative and confrontational. They continually walk, Holok, they consistently went about their lives, in their own counsel, customs, and traditions, Bar-Moezahem, with their own devices, plans and principles, their advice, deliberations and purposes. Mizmor 81-12. If only, if it only could have been different, I wish it had not been this way, my people, Ameni, had listened to me, Shama la Eni. Yisra'el, in my ways, Bar Derek Eni, you would have walked, Holok. Mizmor 81-13. Then, I would have consistently subdued, Kana, I would have continually humbled and silenced, their adversaries, Mouth Oyebhem, habitually turning my hand against, Shu Yod Eni Al, their troubles and foes, Wa Al Zahem. Mizmor 81-14. Those who demonstrably shun and slight, who are averse to and disdain, thereby actively causing others to deny, sane, those who dislike, showing enmity toward, who detest the mention of, who oppose and do not appreciate, showing malice by prompting others to reject or ignore, Yahowah, will be considered worthless and will be rejected by him, Kakashlahu, they will be perceived as insignificant, diminished and disappointed, denied and estranged, for having dealt falsely regarding him. Then disavowed as deceitful, having feigned their relationship, they will cower and cringe for having been disingenuous and misleading. And the way they experience time will continue to exist that way, Wa 289 higher Ethem, forevermore throughout eternity, La Olam. Mizmor, Psalm 81:15. This blunt assessment of what ails Yisrael began with God discovering and exposing their true nature at Meribah. And because that story leads directly to and helps explain the reason for the serpents, as well as the antidote for their venom, let's reconsider it from this perspective. And the entire community, Yisra'el ha-ida, everything associated with the enduring witness and restoring testimony, of the children of Yisra'el, Beni Yisra'el, came to, Bo, the desert, Midbar, lifeless wasteland where the word is questioned, of sin, tin, a thorn which is used to prick, prod, or goad, in the first and foremost, Vaha Rishon, month, Kadesh, time of renewal in Abib around Pesach, and the people, Waha Am, settled, Yashab, in Kadesh, Kadesh, to be set apart, where Miriam, Washam Miriam, died, Moth, and was buried, Wakabar Sham. Bamidbar 21. There had not been any water, Walo Hayamaim, for the community, Ha-ida. So, they were gathered against, Wakahal al, Mos, drawn out, Moshe, and to oppose, Wa al, Aharon, the alternative, Aharon. Bamidbar 22. Then the people, Waha Am, quarreled in opposition, consistently ridiculing and mocking, while being contentious, Ribe, they were continually hostile, insulting, accusing, and taunting, toward, Mos, Moshe. They protested and said, Wal ma la ma, if only, Walu, we had perished, Gawa, along with the death, Bar Gawa, of our brothers, Achanakyu, our relatives and compatriots, in the presence of, La Pana, Yahowah, Yahowah. Bamidbar 23. 290 So, for what purpose, Walamah, did you bring, Bo, Yahowah, Yahowah, with this contingent, Eth Kahal, 2, this desert, Hamidbar Hazeh, this lifeless wilderness of questioning the word, so that we could die, La Month, here, Sham, along with our livestock, Anaknu wa bear Anaknu. Bamidbar 24. And for what purpose, Walamah, did you withdraw us in such a grandiose manner, Alal Anaknu, from, Miraim, the crucibles of political and religious oppression, Miraim, the cauldrons of cruel persecution where the people were confined and restricted by military and economic institutions, plural of Matzor, to be delineated as a foe and besieged, during a time of testing and tribulation, from Ch, to be bound and confined by an adversary, assaulted and shut up in the likes of a concentration camp by those showing great hostility, to come with us, Labo Ethanaknu, to this horrible, good-for-nothing place, El Ha-Makam Ha-Ra, to this miserable, harmful, troubling, and all-around bad sight, this worthless, noxious, and disagreeable location. This is not a place, Hazeth Lo Makam, for sowing seed, Zerah, for families to grow and produce offspring, or for figs, Watena, edible fruit, or for vines, Warjepan, even pomegranates, Rimon. And besides all of that, there is nothing to drink, Wamaim Ein La Shatar. Bamidbar 25. Mos, Wa Moshe, one who draws out, and, Wa Al, Aharon, enlightened free will and the alternative, moved away from, Bomin, the presence, Pana, of the contingent community and mob, Ha-Kahal, 2, the doorway, Petak, of the tent, Ohol, the home and covering, the clearly shining dwelling place, of the eternal witness to the appointed meetings, Mode, of the scheduled appointments, a compound of Mao and Ed, of whom the eternal testimony, is about and 291 to whom the everlasting witness pertains. And they dropped, Wa Nepal, on their faces, Al-Panahem. The glorious presence and enormous value, Kabod of Yahowah, appeared and was seen, Ra, was revealed and shown, such that he was witnessed, by them, Elhem. Bamidbar 26. And Yahowah, spoke, the Bar, 2, Moshe, for the purpose of saying, La'amah, Bamidbar 27, grasp hold of, Lakek Eth, the staff, Eth-Hamate, the branch which is symbolic of the tribes which comprise the nation, and summon, Kahal, the community of witnesses, Ha-ida, you, Otter, and also, Wa, your brother, Achotter, Aharon, the alternate, Aharon, representing enlightened free will, should speak, Debar, 2, the stone, Harsela, to the rocky jagged crag, before their eyes, La-ahem, in their sight so that they might gain understanding and perspective, and it will give, Wa Nathan, and it will bestow and produce, its water, Maim Hu. Thereby, Wa, you shall bring out, Yatsa, you will withdraw and remove, for them, Lahem, water, Maim, from, Min, the rocky crag, Harsela, the stone outcropping, and you will be providing a drink, Wasaka, for, the community to witness on behalf of the restoring testimony, Ha-ida, and also, Wa, for their livestock, Behem. Bamidbar 28. And Mos, Wa Moshe, grasped hold of, Lakek the staff, Ha-mate, the branch which is symbolic of the tribes which comprise the nation, from the presence of, min la pana, Yahweh, Yahowah, in the manner which, ka Asher, he instructed him, Zawahu, directed and guided. Bamidbar 29. Then Moshe, summoned, Kahal, along with Aharon, Waharon, the contingent community, Kahal, 2, the presence of, Hannah, 292 before, the rocky outcropping, Harsela. And, he said to them, Amar Lahem, please, I implore you, listen, Shama, those of you who are rebellious and embittered, Hamara, those who are defiant and obstinate malcontents, is it possible that from, Harmin, this, Hazeth, crag, Harsela Harzeh, we will bring forth, Yatsa, we will withdraw, water, maim, for you, La Otter. Bamidbar 2010. So, Moshe, raised, his hand, Ethiod and he struck, Naka, he lashed out at, attacking and beating, the rocky outcropping, Harsela, with, his staff, Hamate, twice with 2 strikes, Pamim, multiple times, representing the steps one takes in life, and, abundant, Rab, waters, Maim, came out, Yatsa. Then, the community of the restoring testimony, Ha'ida, drank, Shatar, as did, their livestock, bear. Bamidbar 2011. Therefore, Yahowah, said, Amar, 2, Moshe, and 2, Aharon, because, you did not place your trust in me and you were not trustworthy, lo aman bar any, you did not validate or affirm the enduring veracity of my assurance, you did not depend or rely upon me, and you were not supportive or affirming of me, nor reliable this time in upholding what I had avowed, for the purpose of demonstrating that I am unique, special, set apart, and very different, la kadash any, to distinguish and separate me from that which is normal, common, and pervasive, before, the eyes, ein, the sight and understanding, the perspective and vantage point, of the children of Yisra'el, Beni Yisrael, therefore, the correct approach is that, la ken, you will not bring, lo boeth, this contingent community, ha kahal hazeth, into, the land, ha eres, which, to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, Asher, I gave to them 293 Nathan Lahem, I offered to them, appointed for them, and placed before them. Bamidbar 2012. These are, Hem, the Maim Meribah, the waters of contention, Maim Meribah, the waters of provocation and quarreling, conflict and strife, and of willful rejection and deliberate betrayal, from to question and ponder the implications of ribe, contentious words, quarreling and complaining, of controversy and disputes, where, Asher, Beni Yisrael, the children who are contentious and quarrelsome with God, Beni Yisrael, were contentious with and taunted, disputed and opposed, quarrelled against and deliberately accused, ribeth, were cantankerous and argumentative, combative and antagonistic, petulant and mocking, creating controversies and complaints, finding fault with, perfect, Yahowah. And through them, Wabahem, he demonstrated that he was different, Kadash, he showed that he was set apart, distinct, uncommon and, thus, unlike them. Bamidbar, in the wilderness, Numbers 20:13. However, the children of Yisrael would disregard this lesson too. It had become a pattern of behavior, traits that they had amalgamated into their very nature. Previously, if you recall, there had been a complete meltdown at the very cusp of entry into the land. In fact, the only reason that the Yisraelites were still in the wilderness is because of what transpired when Yahweh tried to take them out of it. Remember? The entire assemblage of what should have been eternal witnesses, Washel Ha'ida, rose up and were carried away, Nasa, offering up their voices, Nathan Kaulhem, by crying, wailing and weeping, Wabeka, as a people, Ha-am, throughout the night, and in the darkness, Bah-ha-Layla Ha-hu. Bamidbar 14:1. 294 And everyone among the children of Yisrael, Washel Beni Yisrael, grumbled and complained, howling against and blaming, Lunal, Mos and Aharon, the one who draws out and the alternative, Moshe wa al-Aharon. The entire community served as witnesses, Washel Ha'ida, when they said to them, Wa Amar Elhem, if only we had died, Lumoth, in the land of the religious and political oppressors, Bar Eres Miraim, within the realm of despots and tyrants, in the cauldrons of military and economic confinement, while subjected to the coercive cruelty of slavery, deprived of freedom by national and political persecution, in a place akin to a concentration camp. Or if only, Aulu, we had died, Moth, in this wilderness while questioning the word, Baha Midbar Hazeh. Bamidbar 14:2. Why, Walamar, did Yahweh bring us, Yahweh Boeth Anaknu, to this land, El Ha Eres Ha Joth, so that we would fall by the sword, la nafal baha cherub. Our women, isha anaknu, and our little children, watapanaknu, will be preyed upon and plundered, la baz. Wouldn't it be better, ha lo tob, for us to go back, la anaknu shub, to the crucibles of political and religious oppression, miraim. Bamidbar 14:3. And they said to one another as brethren, wa amar ish el ach, we want to choose and appoint, Nathan, a higher and better ruler, a foremost leader, Rosh, because we want to return, Shub, to the religious and political oppressors, Miraim. Bamidbar 14:4. Then Moseh and Aharon fell, wa nafal, on their faces, al panahem, before, la pana, the entire contingent community, this horde and mob, kahal, the swarming herd of wannabe witnesses, Eda, of the children of Yisra'el, Beni Yisrael. Bamidbar 14:5. 295 So Yahshua ben Nun, Yahweh saves the children who endure forever, Yahshua ben Nun, and Caleb ben Yefuneh, he is wholeheartedly judgmental as a child in the presence, wa Caleb ben Yefuneh, out of the ones who had explored, Minhata, the land, Eth-ha Eres, tore their clothes as a sign of cutting ties and disassociating from the insulting behavior and disparaging words, Kara Bijthem. Bamidbar 14:6. They challenged the entire assemblage, wa Amar el Shurl Eda, of the children of Yisrael, Beni Yisrael, saying, La Amar, we passed through, Obar, the land, Ha Eres, which has been provided as a benefit of the relationship, Asher. We have explored and investigated it, carefully reconnoitering and surveying everything associated with it, Bar-hai la Ter-eth-hai. The land, Ha Eres, is very, very good, exceedingly pleasant and especially desirable, enormously productive and beneficial, even stunningly beautiful, Tob Maud. Bamidbar 14:7. If, Yahowah, wants to be with us, prefers us, and is willing to be around us, Chafetz Barnaknu, then he will come with us and bring us into this land, Wa Boeth Anaknu el Ha Eres Ha Joth, and give it to us, Wa Nathan Hai La Anaknu. It is a land, Eres Hai, which, as a benefit of the relationship, Asher, flows with a great abundance, Zub, of milk and honey, Shabuw'ah de Bash. Bamidbar 14:8. That notwithstanding, and let us be perfectly clear regarding this point, do not rebel religiously against or politically oppose, acting in a revolting manner against, al-Murad, Yahowah. Also, you, Atom, should not respect, admire, or fear, al-Yer, anything associated with the people, Eth-am, of the land, Ha-Eres, should they attack and 296 fight against us, Lakamanaknu. The shadow of their protection, Selhem, will be removed, Sur, from them, Min Elhem, because, Yahowah, is with us, Ethanaknu. Neither respect nor fear them, Al-Yerhem. Bamidbar 14:9. So then, everyone, Shurl, who was part of the community witnessing against themselves, Ha-Eda, said, Amar, let's stone them, executing them by hurling large rocks at them, La Ragam Ethem Baha Eben. However, the glorious presence, Karbod of Yahowah, appeared within the tent, Rabah Ohel, of the eternal witness to the restoring meetings, Mode, in opposition toward, all of the children of Yisrael, Shurl Beni Yisrael. Bamidbar 14:10. And Yahowah, asked, saying to, Amar Moshe, for how long and for what reason, Adon, will these people, Hazeh, reject and despise me, treating me with utter contempt and complete disrespect, Nats any? How long and for what reason, Adon, will they not trust me and rely upon me, lower man bar any, especially with all of the signs, the symbols, the examples and illustrations, these many accounts and distinguishing and open communications, Shurl ha-oath, which, to reveal the way to receive the benefits of the relationship, Asher, I have accomplished, acting upon while engaging in their midst, Asabar Kirepu. Bamidbar 14:11. I will lash out at them and incapacitate them, Nakahu, with this plague of words, Vaha de bear. I will disinherit them, Yarashem, I will dispossess them for a very long time, disgorging them as if they were vomit, driving them away so that they are destitute, impoverished, and displaced, even replaced to some extent and for some time. Then, in conjunction with you, Ethota, I will act and engage to work with, Asar, a Gawi, non-297 Yisraelite, La Gawi, someone who is unrelated, someone from a different race and place, who will be more empowered and capable, Sum, who will accomplish vastly more and be greater, from Etzam, who will have a backbone and be much more essential, than they, Minhu. Bamidbar, Numbers 14:12. And so, they would remain in the wilderness, continuing to complain. Indeed, every one of these individuals, Shirl ha-ishim, who have witnessed, ha-ra, my substantive presence, carve any, along with my signs, the symbols, examples, and illustrations of mine, bar Shirl ha-oath, which, to reveal the way to receive the benefits of the relationship, Asher, I have accomplished, acting upon while engaging within, Azab, the crucibles of political and religious oppression, Miraim, as well as in the wilderness, Wabah ha-midbar, and, yet, are continually trying, testing, and tempting me Nasar any, these 10 occurrences, Zayes apam, and have not listened, while lo shama, to my voice, Bar Kauleni, Bamidbar 14:22, even if they see, Imra, the land, Eth Eres, which, Asher, I promised and pledged, Shaba, to their fathers, La Amhem, since all of them disrespected and despised me, rejected and spurned me, treating me with contempt, Wa Shirl Nats any, they will not experience it, Lo Rahai. Bamidbar 14:23. However, Wa, my associate, co-worker, and servant, Ebed any, Caleb, the dog who is all heart and totally judgmental, Caleb, because, Ekeb, he has, higher, a different spirit, Ruwak Acre, within him, Imhu, and has wholeheartedly, and without reservation followed me right to the very end, Malachar any, I will bring him, Wabohu, into the land, El Ha-Eres, which, to show the way to get the most enjoyment out of life, Asher, he arrived there and 298 entered, Bosham. And so, Wa, his descendants, those who are rooted and grow based upon what he has sown, Zerahu, will inherit it, Yarashai. Bamidbar, Numbers 14:24. After these dual debacles, Aharon was stripped of his priestly responsibilities and died. This caused the disgruntled people to weep all the more. And yet, even as Yisra'el wallowed in their tears, Yahowah resolved the menacing problem of the Canaanites. But it did not seem to matter, putting God in an exceedingly difficult position. From Mount Hor, Minhor Ha-Ha, they set out, Nasa, by way of the Red Sea, Derek Yam Suf, to go around, Sarbab, the land of Edom, Man, Etz Eres Edom. But the souls, the essential essence of the people, Wanipesh Ha-Am, grew impatient and wearisome, Kazar, along the way, Bar Ha-Derek. Bamidbar 21:4. In addition, the people, Wah-Ha-Am, spoke out against God, Debar Bar Elohim, and against Moshe Bar Moshe. What is the reason, Lama, you withdrew us, lifting us up, Allah Anaknu, from the religious and political oppressors, Min Miraim, away from the despots and tyrants within the cauldrons of military and economic subjugation, the authority figures in the place of coercive cruelty where slaves are confined and restricted by political persecution, to die, La Mouth, in the wilderness, Bar Ha-Midbar. Because, there is no food, Ein Lechem, and no water, Ein Maim. Furthermore, our souls, Nipesh and Aknu, loathe the repugnance of this disgusting, cause, semblance of bread, Bar Ha-Lechem, which is miserable and worthless, even despicable, Ha-Calical. Bamidbar 21:5. That was the last straw. All Yahowah heard from the Yisra'elites was the irritating screech of a needle on a 299 broken record. They had but one thing to say, and it was nauseating. There was no way that the Almighty could allow such malcontents into his home. He would now have to garner the people's attention and reset their attitude. And for that to occur, things would have to get worse before they could improve. So then, Yahowah, sent by letting go and releasing, Shalak, some snakes, Nahosh, vipers, from Nahosh, an enchanting fortune teller who interprets signs and omens using magic to reveal the supernatural and invoke curses by being religious, among the people, Bar-Ha-Am. And the people were bitten, with fangs inflicting, Waha and Nashak, the burning venom of the fiery serpents, Hasaroth, to burn and be inflamed. Many among the people of Yisrael, Amrab min Yisrael, died, Moth. Bamidbar 21:6. The Hebrew word for snake is Nahosh. And as such, it is often rendered as serpent. It is based upon the verb, Nahosh, which means to be an enchanting fortune teller by interpreting signs and omens, using magic to reveal the supernatural and invoke curses. To be Nahosh is to be religious. As such, a Nahosh would adore the Zohar. Saroth actually means to burn up and be inflamed, and is indicative of the result of the viper's venomous bite. As we shall soon see, this will become an important distinction. Whether or not they made the connection between the toxicity of these serpents and Satan's beguiling religious rhetoric in the garden, and then their connection now during the Exodus, the serpentine slithering reptiles got their attention. Perhaps, now, they would seek the cure even though, to be fair, Yahowah was providing what they had requested. They were dying along with their brethren. Nevertheless, 300 so, the people came to Moseh, and Moshe, and said, we have gone astray and missed the way, chatter, we have been wrong, bear blame, and have failed, forfeiting the opportunity, because, we have spoken against, Yahowah, and against you, without any outside influence, and totally on your own initiative. You should want to intercede, pleading, palal, even apart from our insistence, devoid of any undue pressure, and without being compelled by any of us. You, of your own volition, exercising your best judgment, decide to impose your influence and arbitrate, hitpail imperative, to Yahowah, so that he removes, he comes to drag off and abolish, imperfect, the snakes, Nahosh, that which is associated with the vipers. From Nahosh, the enchanting fortune tellers who interpret signs and omens using magic to reveal the supernatural and invoke curses by being religious, from being upon us, Minanel. So, on his own merit, Moseh interceded, Moseh made the appeal for reasons of his own, hitpail imperfect, behind the backs, of the people, Bamidbar 21:7. They were disingenuous even now. Yes, they had missed the way Yahweh had conveyed through his Torah, and they had spoken against God, doing so repeatedly and in a vulgar manner. But even now, rather than going to Yahweh themselves and apologizing for their deplorable attitude, rather than return to the Torah and read it to get back on track by forsaking religion to embrace the covenant relationship, they tried to guilt-trip Moseh into begging on his initiative rather than theirs. Equally disgusted with them, Moseh went behind their backs, hoping that God would spare him the indignity. And he did. 301 Yahowah said, to Moseh, Moshe, of your own volition, you can choose to fashion for yourself, a salata, you can act any way you want and can engage on your behalf by making and benefiting from, imperative, the burning venom of the fiery serpents, off, and set it, placing it, put it safely, imperative, upon a sign, upon a banner to garner the people's attention and to convey a message. And then it will occur that, anyone, who is bitten, who is inseminated by the fangs, and who considers what they are being shown, who perceive what is being revealed, perfect, by this, will survive, they will be kept alive for the moment, their lives spared as they recover, perfect. Bamidbar 21:8. The snakes were not burning. After all, a mythical fiery serpent would have torched the cloth banner, defeating the purpose. And clearly, with the serpent serving to depict Satan's underhanded, serpentine approach to religion, as well as his overall toxicity, the last thing we would expect is for God to request that the adversary's image be placed upon a banner, for fear his people would worship the damn thing, which they did, 2 Kings 18:4. But with Surah depicting the burning bite, and inflamed limbs resulting from the viper's corrosive and debilitating venom, we find instructions to place the antidote for the poison upon the sign. Snake venom is the remedy for the snake's bite. Should you be confused and have expected to find God telling Moseh to put a flaming serpent on a staff, then you can blame the theologians of days gone by who thought that fiery snakes on a pole were more compatible with their religious notions, sort of like depicting their Christ on a cross. But this is a treacherous portrayal for Christians, not unlike insulting the Almighty by worshipping under the 302 image of a tortured and dead God on a stick. More on this in a moment. Unfortunately, by this point, as we have learned in the previous examples, Moseh and Yahweh were no longer on the same page. God said one thing and Moseh did another. Without Yahweh's resilience, and at 120 years of age, having first been criticized by the Yisra'elites for defending them 80 years ago, he incorrectly interpreted God's instructions. And yet, to his credit, just as he had after Moseh had struck the rocky outcropping rather than address it, Yahweh delivered the desired results anyway. I'm not being unfair to Moseh, just keeping it real. God works with imperfect implements. Abraham pimped his wife, Sarah, out twice for monetary gain. Daud made several horrible decisions late in his life, and all but stopped writing. We have now witnessed Moseh losing it. This is a tough job, and the best wear down and make mistakes. Even as I am writing this, and I'm not in their league, I came to realize that I'll be correcting my misconceptions and improving the translations and commentary throughout Yada Yahowah through the end of this year, well into December of 2022. Then there would be yet another edit to give Daud credit for fulfilling the Mikra taking us through 2033. 4 new volumes will follow as we do our best to describe what God has revealed will occur between now and his return. By that time, there will be 30 volumes on the YadaYah.com bookshelf to serve as Yahweh's Nez, banner to his people. And I will be approaching 70. God asked Moseh to place the Surah, fiery and inflaming venom on a Nez banner, but instead, the aging liberator created something that must be left to the imagination considering the potential and provocative renderings of Nakosheth in this context. 303 Moshe, created, Asar, made, a reddish malleable metallic, a horish, or a menstruating, Nakosheth, a copper, brass, or bronze, a lewd and filthy female sexual organ and genitalia, or a very expensive, snake, Nahosh, viper, from Nahosh, enchanting fortune teller who interprets signs and omens using magic to reveal the supernatural and invoke curses by being religious. Then he placed it, Wasim he put it, upon the sign, Al-Harnez on the banner. Nonetheless, it came to pass, higher, for the moment it occurred, that whenever and even though, the enchanting viper, Nahosh, the snake, from Nahosh, the mesmerizing fortune teller who interprets signs and omens using magic to reveal the supernatural and invoke curses by being religious, so as to inseminate an individual, Nashak Ethish, then, he would observe, properly interpret, and consider, Nabat, would look at and perceive, thinking about and responding appropriately to. The goal, the intent, of the costly reddish malleable and metallic, horish and filthy, menstruating, Nakosheth, the copper, brass, or bronze, lewd and filthy female sexual organ, and very expensive. Spellbinding snake, Nahosh, mesmerizing viper and hypnotic serpent, from Nahosh, enchanting fortune teller interpreting signs and omens using magic to reveal and invoke supernatural religious curses, and live for a while, Wachea, and remain alive for the moment, Kal perfect, actually recovering for a finite period. Bamidbar, Numbers 21:9. No matter how we interpret the Nahosh, enchanting vipers, the Saraf, fiery and inflaming venom, the Nakosheth, reddish and horish mutation, or the Nez banner, the Yisraelites were being exposed to the real reason that they were dying. Their religion was toxic and killing them. And for the moment, exposure therapy prevailed, and they lived to be belligerent on another day. 304 And true to form, rather than processing the message imprinted on the sign, the Yisraelites came to worship it as yet another religious relic. Such is the propensity of God's people to convolute even the most graphic of signs. Although, when it comes to mind-numbing religious perversions, Twistians win hands down, ultimately putting these words in Jesus' mouth, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. John 3:14-15 KJV. So according to the New Testament, the Passover lamb was really a snake, and whoever believes in the serpent will live forever. Methinks someone misinterpreted the sign and misread what actually occurred. So, let's boil this all down to its essential essence. God hates religion. There will be no healing, no restoration of Yisrael, until they come to understand what has sickened them and then embrace the cure. While it took us a while, I think it was worth the effort to examine the overall benefit of Yahowah rapha, restoring Yisrael by exposing them to the aown, the religious corruptions and sheqer, mistaken beliefs which have caused them to be stripped naked and hauled away as slaves. The statement that motivated our prolonged journey through the Mizmor and Torah was initiated by, when I restore and heal, Kar Rapha Enilah, as I cure and repair, promoting the restoration of Yisra'el, individuals who will engage and endure with God, then the religious corruptions and societal perversity, aown, the consequence of being wrong, the cultural iniquity, distortions, and depravity, of Ephraim 305 Ephraim, worthless ash, will be revealed and exposed, Galah, it will be made known, uncovered, and openly displayed, especially the misery inflicted by the misguided citizens, Warah. The horrible suffering and injurious circumstances caused by the evil shepherds and troublesome community, of Shomarown, Samaria, Shomarown, of the observant, the capital city of the northern kingdom. This is because, they devise and perpetrate, they plot, prepare, and deal in, misleading lies, false perceptions, and mistaken beliefs, sheqer, vain and useless frauds and contrived oratory. As a result, the thief and slave trader, Waganaf, the robber and kidnapper, will arrive to pursue them. Marauding militants will conduct raids, stripping them bare, Gadud Pashat, soldiers will remove everything, including their clothing, in the streets and public places, Bahar Chungs, right out in the open. Hausha 7-1, but that was then, and this is now? However, they continually fail to mention, Balamallah, they consistently fail to actually acknowledge or say, Kal imperfect, or to consider, properly deducing by taking to heart, La Libabhem, such that they fail to recognize, that I have memorialized and proclaimed, Zakar, that I have remembered and recounted, Kal perfect, everything pertaining to, Sha'aruwr, the misery inflicted by their ruinous shepherds and misguided citizens, Warahem. the horrible suffering and injurious circumstances caused by their errant leaders and troublesome community. So now, utter their wanton exploits, their foolish customs and abusive traditions, malal-hem, their counterproductive way of doing things, especially their religious practices and intentions, surround and encircle them, sabab-hem, envelop them, right before, nedged, prior to and in sharp contrast with, 306 my appearance, pana-eni, my presence. Hausha, he liberates, Hosea 7:2. This is precisely the point. Yahowah has assessed and systematically listed the many ways Judaism has inflicted misery upon countless generations of Yisra'elites. The condemnation of religion is found throughout the Torah, the Nabi, and the Mizmor. The only way to miss it, to deny the detrimental influence of religion, in general, and Judaism, in particular, is to be willfully ignorant, and completely disingenuous. Rabbis have written billions of words, and yet, you won't find one of them condemning Judaism. Claiming to speak for God, they are not even listening to him. And ultimately for most, but fortunately not for all, it will be too late to change. Even right up to the moment of Yahowah's return, the religious will be living in denial while pretending to be righteous. They will blame everyone but themselves for the hell being inflicted upon Jews during the time of Jacob's troubles. Having thoroughly condemned religion, Yahowah turned his attention to politics. He does not much like it, either. With the hardships imposed by their corrupt shepherds and by having misled the citizens, Ba'al, by the horrible misery and injurious circumstances experienced in the community as a result of their troublesome religious leaders, they please the king, Samak Melech, they endear themselves to their rulers, and, by their lies, Wabar Kakashem, with their deceptions and delusions, with their mendacious branding and unhealthy opinions, the government leaders, military officers, political officials, and nobility, Sar, the superintendents, administrators, and overseers, those with implied authority, the governors and elite. Hausha, he delivers, Hosea 7:3. 307. Should you be curious as to how this could be so, wondering how misleading the people and creating hardships for them pleases kings and political authorities, the answer is boldly conveyed in Machiavelli's The Prince. Giving advice to the blue bloods of Italian society, the nation's nobility and elite who would seek the riches and power of becoming pope, he proved that the hardships imposed by treachery and terror were the most effective tools in establishing and maintaining control. Even today, a society scared by the threat of pandemic or war, terrorism or climate change, is easy to manipulate and cower. When people are enlightened and free, they are not so readily controlled. In a sea of unfounded opinions and intentional delusions, the masses remain hopelessly befuddled and confused, rendering them putty in the hands of the manipulators. By contrast, Yahowah likes to use the metaphor of marriage because family relationships between husbands and wives, parents and children, brothers and sisters, vividly and accurately portray the kind of personal relationship he desires with us. When they are close and compassionate, loving and nurturing, open and honest, they are a source of unbridled joy. But when they break down, heartache ensues. They are all unfaithful adulterers cheating through illicit religions, Shirl Hemnaf, all of them are idolatrous, worshipping others, all prostituting themselves. They are like, camo, similar to, an ignited and burning oven, Tanyo Bar, a kindled furnace set ablaze and glowing like a luminary, whose baker, Minafi, ceases to be alert, Shabat Yor, takes an intermission from being aware of what's occurring, when kneading and manipulating, Minlush, while using his hands to press and roll, the dough, Batsik, the grain flour mixed with water, while it contains yeast, add chamets hue, as a witness, it is becoming embittered, oppressed, and cruel. 308 by the introduction of the pervasive fungus. Hausha, he protects, Hosea 7:4. This prophetic testimony Yahowah has been providing to Yisrael through Hausha. Hosea began with God asking his prophet to engage in a relationship with a religious prostitute. This was done to vividly demonstrate in an unmistakable way God's frustration with Yisrael choosing to be religious, pandering on behalf of false gods and mistaken beliefs. By making their bed among such delusions, they are seen cheating on the covenant and disassociating themselves from Yahowah. The examples of their religious infidelity have been ample and undeniable, beginning with their devotion to Baal, the Lord and Asherah, the Blessed Mother, as their religiosity played out in the Yisra'el Valley. The detrimental and misleading influence of clerics and kings has been visible every step of the way, with almost everyone within the community capitulating and becoming infected and mortally wounded. This paradigm ties in with that overall theme. In Yahowah's estimation, everyone was unfaithful, and the entire nation of Yisrael had been corrupted by illicit religious notions. The community was ablaze, caught up in a conflagration that was devouring them. And it was all because, like the baker mixing chamets, yeast with the flour, they had lost focus, become distracted, and were no longer able to separate their religious lies from the truth. As a result, they would chamets, oppress and embitter themselves. More importantly, and indeed essential to our understanding of the purpose of Chag Matzah, is that the chamets, yeast we are being asked to remove from our diets and homes, is symbolic of the embittering consequence of the oppressive and pervasive nature of religion. The ad chamets serves as a witness, providing 309 enduring testimony regarding the propensity of religion to control the people, subjugating them. It is the cruelest and deadliest of all human schemes, a fungus that has spread around the world, infecting 90% of the planet's people, sickening them beyond the hope of salvation. The invitation to be called out and meat of UnYeasted Bread is designed to remove the invasive fungus of chamets from the souls of the covenant's children, healing and perfecting them from the stain and stigma of religion. This is the message we miss at our peril. This is what Dowd accomplished for us, literally accepting and transporting our yeast into Sha'aruwr where it was deposited, never to be seen again. As a people, we have become willfully ignorant, if not comatose. No longer observant or thoughtful, these Yisra'elites were ill-prepared and ill-equipped, making them even more susceptible to the deceptions which eat away at the berith between ourselves and our God. To know and understand requires diligence. We must prepare ourselves by rolling up our sleeves and opening his books with our hands, examining them with our eyes, and contemplating the message in our minds. When we take an intermission from the truth, as so many have done, we are no longer prepared to meet our Maker. Our witness fails because our light dims as the Spirit ceases to glow within us. A fire must be kindled and stirred if it is to burn brightly. Continuing to speak of political organizations, their leaders and supporters, Yahowah explains that they are intoxicated with a false spirit. Together, they act like demonic monsters engaged in mediation and mockery while promoting derisive interpretations. As a result, the politicians and their legions ambush their victims in deceptive traps, conspiratorial schemes, and plots designed to harm by way of deception. 310 The day, Yom, of our ruler, Melech and Aknu, the governmental officers and administrators, Sar, the political governors, military leaders, superintendents, administrators, and overseers, the elitists with implied authority, are afflicted and grieved, Shelah, are sickened and diseased, weakened and wounded, with venomous anger and poisonous antagonism, Kema, with burning hostility and emotional turmoil, indignation and fury, while being intoxicated, Minyain, from inebriation. He pulls out and extends his hand, Mashak Yod Hu, in a protracted motion he raises and stretches out his hand in a show of influence and power, toward the scoffers and mockers, Ethlites, to those who are disrespectful, undisciplined, and contentious. Hausha 7-5. Indeed, KY, like an oven, Kar Tanyo, similar to a fire pot or furnace, they present, Karab, they approach, offer, and bring, their dissenting attitudes and deceptive thinking, Labhem bar Orabhem, their treachery and deceitful motivations along with plots to ambush. All night, Shirl har Layla, the baker, Afi, sleeps, unaware, Yashan. In the morning, Boker, senseless and foolish, he is consumed and destroyed, Hubar, by the blazing fire, Kar Eshli Habar. Hausha, he frees, Hosea 7:6. There is the designed appearance that everyone is working together for the common good, and that politics is a life of public service, but nothing could be further from the truth. Politics is about self-aggrandizement in the arena of egos. It is about being catered to and put on a pedestal, acclaimed and empowered, all based upon false projections and misleading agendas. For this reason, those who feed the egos of such broken individuals are in it for themselves. They actually despise their bosses because they know them for who they really are. And all the while, those working for a living like the baker, those supporting 311 the governmental monstrosity with the sweat of their brow, remain unaware that they are being used, played for fools, until it is too late, and they are caught up in fires that have been flamed by their disingenuous leaders. 17 years ago, during my first edit pass through these translations of Hausha that I had initially composed 20 years ago, I had noted, every word of which has become synonymous with politics circa 2005. It was hard to imagine then how the world would devolve into a cesspool of ignorance and disinformation. While I spoke out vociferously against the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, letting everyone who would listen to any of my 5,000 appearances on talk radio programs know that we would only succeed in making bad situations worse, I didn't imagine how horrifyingly accurate that prediction would become. As the foremost expert on the cause of Islamic terrorism, I spoke to deaf ears long before the invasion of Syria, and the rise of the Islamic State, at a time when the problem could have been resolved without armed conflict. At the time, I also warned against the illusions of anthropogenic global warming, explaining how it would be used to empower world governance. Yet, I did not foresee how readily fear-mongering would cause the masses to forego freedoms and prosperity. Nor did I see science becoming so politicized as to lose all credibility. In 2005, I was unaware of how the grotesque overreaction to a virus would paralyze the world in 2020, destroying our humanity, economies, and currencies by robbing almost everyone of their liberty and livelihoods. And while I spoke out against the liberal imposition of government controls at the outset of the pandemic, most preferred to cower rather than consider the implications. Back then, while I explained that the US invasion of the Islamic world would backfire and lead to world war, positioning America and Europe with the Sunnis against 312 Russia, and China allied with the Shias in Iran, I had not envisioned America's war with Russia. I did not start speaking out against this inevitability until after 2013, when the CIA inspired the overthrow of the pro-Russian government in hopes of turning Ukraine against Russia, and toward Europe and NATO. We have been on a direct path to nuclear conflagration ever since. For years, I had spoken out against the militarization of police and of their propensity for dishonesty and abuse of power, but I did not foresee the moronic response of Black Lives Matter, where those who were responsible for killing themselves blamed others. Likewise, back then, I understood how political correctness was robbing generations of their ability to reason, but I did not predict the mental cancer that has metastasized into the progressive agenda nor think that it would become the leading arbiter of antisemitism. Even back in 2005, I was concerned by the growing prevalence of conspiracy theories. They were intellectual quicksand, devouring all things rational. But I did not foresee such delusions becoming more popular than leading religions, or equally harmful. And who then, certainly not me, could have predicted that America would elect an unhinged narcissist who would encourage storming the Capitol, or that this episode would be followed by Weekend at Bernie's with Biden? How could the voters be so unaware? How is it even possible that the collective intelligence of a nation could fall to this level? Not only is America the poster child for Hausch's prophetic commentary, but so is his beloved Israel, with 5 national elections in 3 years resulting in nothing but unethical conglomerations of dysfunctional and divisive parties. The most popular, Netanyahu, is a crook who garners support by bribing the Haredim to support 313 him. That is only slightly worse than Prime Minister Bennett bribing Ram, the United Arab List, to join a coalition of antagonists. All the while, rabbis have been raping women and children at a prodigious rate, outpacing the Roman Church. There were clues even back then, 17 years ago, that freedom of expression on the internet would be short-lived. Now, there is far more rubbish than reliable information. And worse, rather than allowing thoughtful individuals to be judicious in determining what is true and false, we have thought police and censor bots looking to remove and ban anything that does not comply with the progressive agenda of make-believe. We have come a long way in a short time and are falling deeper into the abyss every day. And yet, we haven't even begun the descent into the time of Jacob's troubles, but in many ways, it will be back to the future. Please consider this. YYV8C6 662 Allah's Apostle said, "Some eloquent speech is as effective as magic." YYV9 127 The Prophet said, "I have been given the keys of eloquent speech and given victory with terror, so the treasures of the earth were given to me." Speaking of the kind of assemblies Hauschka has just described, Hitler preached what Muslims practice. Mein Kampf 715 The mass meeting is necessary if only because new adherents of a new movement feel lonely and are easily seized with the fear of being alone. Brought together they sense a greater community. They are carried away by the powerful effect of the suggestive intoxication and enthusiasm of the others. The crowd confirms the correctness of the new doctrine in his mind and removes doubt. He then succumbs to the magic seductive influence of the meeting. 314 Togetherness can be as seductive as it is coercive. It is the essence of mob mentality. It is the nature of what Hauschka was explaining and what we today are experiencing. An evil person with a bad idea can be parlayed into an eruption of uncontrollable rage. Speaking of Muhammad, the first Muslims said this. Hishak, 580 Our strong warriors obey his orders to the letter. By us Allah's religion is undeniably strong. You would think when our horses gallop with bits in their mouths that the sounds of demons are among them. The day we trod down the unbelievers, there was no deviation or turning from the apostles' order. During the battle the people heard our exhortations to fight, and the smashing of skulls by swords that sent heads flying. We severed necks with a warrior's blow. Often we have left the slain cut to pieces and a widow crying alas over her mutilated husband. The study of Islam, like Nazism and Ba'alism, is an exposé on gang mentality, of lies spoken by demons enveloped in darkness. Muhammad's and Hitler's gang of ghouls fed off each other's rage. Terror and piracy became good because everyone they knew was a terrorizing pirate. This is why Barith is personal, not collective. Confirming the smoldering animosity that invades human political schemes, Hauschka reveals. All of them are enraged and inflamed, churl hem kamam, are hot, having strong feelings of animosity toward others along with uncontrolled sexual passions, burning with lust, like a firepot, kahar tanyo, similar to a furnace, oven, or burning coals. And they feed upon and devour, wakal, they consume and destroy, their judges, Shaphat, the adjudicators and litigators who exercise good judgment and make informed and rational decisions. 315 All of their rulers, Shul Melechem, each of their leaders, have fallen, having been diminished in stature and prestige, Naphal, have been brought down as they have lost control of the situation. Not one of them, Ein, calls upon or calls out to me, Kara Bahen El Eni, summons or invites me or meets with or welcomes me. Hausha, he saves, Hosea 7:7. Power corrupts. Egos are inflamed. And it all comes crumbling down, which is why all of their rulers have fallen, having lost control. Human civilizations are devoured from within as are nations. And in the heat of the battle for who will control others and sit at the top of the pecking order, reason is the enemy of the regime. That is why the judges, those who think rationally, must be snuffed out and silenced. But as men vie with one another, determining whose words and swords cut deeper, God is lost in the process. As men rise in power, God's stature within the nation falls. The people become like the Yisra'elites, with no one calling out to or meeting with Yahowah. His name is soon forgotten, his voice but ancient echoes. Ephraim, the worthless speck of carbon ash, Ephraim, insignificant carbon, Hugh, confuses and confounds, Bilal, intermingles and intermixes religious and political notions through syncretism, feeding fodder to the animals, the people, Baha'am. Ephraim, worthless ash, has become, is, a half-baked cake, Hapak Bailey Yuga, overturned and turned around, unreliable and undone flatbread, ready to be overwhelmed and overthrown. Hausha, he delivers, Hosea 7:8. If we were to deduce Yahowah's primary aversion to religion, it would be mankind's propensity to confuse by commingling truth and lies, his witness with man's beliefs. 316 It is in syncretism, the blending of pagan mythology with reality, that religious beliefs become so beguiling that the resulting lies spread like a virus. In this way, the otherwise absurd notions espoused by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are given a veneer of credibility they would not garner on their own. Further, by placing so many misconceptions directly on top of Yahowah's message, they conceal it, precluding most from considering the truth buried beneath the vastly more popular lies. In this way, Bilal and Babel are related, as are Baal, Babylon, and the Bible. They are all half-baked cakes. Hapak also means upside down and ruined. It conveys to be changed in a disturbing way. Hapak reveals that this round loaf of flatbread has been turned into something that cannot be trusted. It will appear right from one side and wrong from the other. It is half-baked, like most lies. Round and flat sun-shaped discs of bread like these were used in Baal worship in Hausha's day and are used in Catholic masses today. Yugas were a sweetened form of bread. This suggests that lies are seductive, often sounding sweeter than truth. A second derivative infers continually going around as in the circular reasoning so often evident in deceptions. A third derivative belies the method used to sell lies, repetitive assertions. One of the many reasons the prophets are interesting, one of the reasons that there are so many of them engaged in conveying the same message, is that they are all encouraged to speak their mind, to share their thoughts, impressions, insights, and conclusions, sometimes even recommendations. That is what we are witnessing here. After having been asked to live with a religious prostitute, after listening to Yahowah condemn Yisra'el for acting like a religious whore, and after recognizing that they were being disinherited and divorced because they were too full 317 of themselves to make room for God in their lives, Hausha testifies, strangers, Zar, foreigners from distant places, will devour his potential and wealth, a Kalkoch Hugh, will consume his resources, inherent ability, and intended authority, and yet, he remains unaware. Wahyu lo yada, he is unfamiliar because he is unobservant and unacquainted, incapable of being perceptive or discerning, perfect. Even though, Gam, some grey hairs, Sebar, have crept upon him, Zarak bar Hugh, still, he is ignorant and irrational, Wahyu lo yada, he does not know or understand and remains clueless. Hausha 7-9. The arrogance of their unwarranted claims, Wagaun, the conceit associated with undeserved prestige, when they call themselves great without justification, of Yisra'el, those who contend against and struggle with God, is their response, Wa'ana, is their reply and answer, their testimony, their deeply disturbed declaration, perfect, to his presence, Bar-Panahu, upon his appearance and to his face. So, they have not changed, they will not return, and they cannot be restored, Wa-lo Shub, there is no coming back, to Yahowah, El Yahowah, to the Almighty's proper designation as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his higher existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation, their God, Elohim Hem. They will not seek him nor even inquire about him, while lo Bakosh Hu, and they have no interest in searching for him, learning about him, or being responsible for diligently procuring or investigating what can be known about, perfect, through all of this, Varshel Joth. Hausha, he liberates, Hosea 7:10, 318. That's quite an indictment. They were given everything, and they gave it all away for nothing. It wasn't a few of them or even for a little while, but all of them and for thousands of years. No matter what Yahowah did to garner their attention, they paid no attention. The smartest people with the best information remained clueless. And nothing has changed. Yisrael has gotten worse, not better, with age. Just look at and listen to a grey-bearded Haredi rabbi if you need proof that their arrogant claims and unbridled craving for respect are totally undeserved. Their response to Yahowah's presence among the people long ago is to mischaracterize him, rename him, and then replace him with a god more befitting them and their religion. The only constant would be the decision to turn away from God while pretending to represent him. In addition to being irascible, the religious were incalcitrant. When it came to Yahowah, the sages were now stupid. So, they have not changed, they will not return, and they cannot be restored, there is no coming back, Waloshu, to Yahowah, El Yahowah, their God, Elohim Hem. They will not seek him nor even inquire about him, remaining irresponsible by failing to diligently procure and investigate what can be learned, Walobakoshu, through all of this, Varshel Joth. I suppose it is only a matter of time before the rabbis dispense with Yahowah's prophets by labeling them anti-Semitic. This isn't tough medicine, it is an obituary. In this next statement, whether we render Yahowah as a pigeon or dove, this one comes with baggage. A history of religious inebriation would affect the people's judgment and lead to their oppression. Moreover, in spite of the Christian spiritual overlays, doves are not peaceful or spiritual birds, as they are among the few species that will peck a rival to death. 319 Ephraim, Ashes, Ephraim, has become, higher, similar to an easily deceived and enticed, Karpatha, easily seduced, allured, and persuaded by glib speech, naive and gullible, pigeon, an oppressive and repressed dove, Yahowah, an intoxicated bird, devoid of judgment, Einleib, incapable of making informed and rational decisions leading to a negative attitude. They call out to and welcome, Kara, they invite and summon, the religious and political oppressors, Miraim, the despots and tyrants within the cauldrons of military and economic subjugation, the authority figures in the places of coercive cruelty where slaves are confined and restricted by political persecution, considered foes, besieged, and assaulted as if shut up inside concentration camps, while conducting their lives after, Holok, going after, Ashur, the fortunate Queen of Heaven and blessed Mother of God, Ashur, a relationship with benefits with Assyria and their goddess. Hausha 7:11. As a result, when, Ka Asher, for the benefit of the relationship as, they go walking in this way, Holok, I will spread out, Paras, my net over them, Alhem Reshith Eni, my restraints upon them, bringing them down, Yarathem, like the birds of the sky, Ka of Hashamim. I am warning them, and I will chastise and correct them, Yashahem, I am attempting to teach them and will discipline them in hopes of improving behavior to avoid future dangers and consequences, in accordance with, Ka, this report to their community of witnesses, Shema La Edahem, this message and news which should be heard regarding the socio-religious congregation providing the testimony. Hausha, he saves, Hosea 7:12. Having spent the last 22 years with Yahowah, we have become foolproof. There isn't much anyone could say about Yahowah or his testimony that is going to 320 befuddle or mislead us, but not so with Yisrael. Rather than investing time listening to Yahowah, they try to impress one another. By having created Talmuds rather than relying exclusively on the one and only Torah, they are gullible and easily persuaded by seductive speech. Yisrael's willful progressive and religious ignorance is so out of control that Yahowah is calling his people bird brains. They have the intellect and judgment of a pigeon. Incapable of making informed and rational decisions, they have a crappy attitude and are readily repressed. In fact, according to God, they welcome being oppressed, preferring religious conformity and tyranny to independence and liberty. And should there not be a Syrian or Egyptian Muslim, a Christian or communist ready to harass them, they will subject themselves to rabbis. And before there were rabbis, Yisra'elites threw themselves at Ba'al and Asherah. Yahowah would warn them, and he is trying to correct them, but there is only so much even he can do with people who prefer to bob their heads praying against a wall, after a while, to even try borders on insanity. Judaism may well be a monotheistic religion, but since Yahowah is not their God, there really isn't much difference between one false god and many. Woe to them, O Elahem, alas, a sorrowful state of intense hardship and distress follows, for they have cast me aside, Ky Nadad Mineni, they have fled from me, some wandering away and others chased away, all banishing me. This is impoverishing them and causing their suffering, Chod Lahem, their approach is destroying them, as it is devastating for them, causing them to be looted and plundered, oppressed and subjugated. 321 It's undeniable that, it is certain and irrefutable that, they have been openly defiant and have rebelled against me, they have been contentious and quarrelsome while renouncing the agreement with me, having broken away from me. I would have rescued them, I would have redeemed and ransomed them, released and delivered them, but they have spoken delusional lies about me, Azab. They have promoted the worship of false gods instead of me, deceiving with the false claims of their religion in opposition to me and counter to reality. Yahowah, he delivers, Hosea 7:13. It is hard to imagine being so foolish that one would flee from God. But why banish Yahowah from one's life only to then devote oneself to being religious? Who in their right mind would abandon the only real God to chase after an impostor? What's the point? This is not a zero-sum game. Walking away from Yahowah is a costly decision. As the chief advocate of liberty and as the source of life, casting God aside is impoverishing and degrading. Even worse is being defiant, as are the rabbis, writing all manner of arguments in opposition to Yahowah's intent. It takes an extraordinary level of disrespect and arrogance to deliberately provoke him. But Jews have made a religion of it. Had even a relatively small showing of Yisra'elites made an honest effort to listen to Yah and to disavow the impostors, he would have redeemed them. But alas, all he heard was an unending stream of religious lies and delusional claims being spoken of him. So, he treated them as they had dealt with him. 322 They do not cry out to me or summon me, while they do not appeal to me or write of me, from their heart or based upon a rational decision on their part, Instead, they howl and lament, Yalal, upon their beds, al-mishkabhem, for grain and wine, al-dogin wa thiraush, they conspire to live alienated, together, but apart, They have turned away from me, they have rejected and forsaken me. Yahowah 7:14. And although I corrected and warned them, instructed and admonished them, I taught and chastened them, perfect, by firmly establishing, tremendously empowering, and then assisting and encouraging, by teaching and strengthening and helping, their Zarawah, productive shepherds, their most important and impactful individuals of action who, as leaders of the flock, are active among the sheep, those who are fruitful and productive among them, accomplishing the mission when sowing the seeds of truth while advancing their purpose as the arm of God, yet, they impute and plot evil against me, but they impute and consider horrible and harmful things about me, thinking the worst of me. Yahowah, he liberates, Hosea 7:15. There are two mighty Zara'wah who have instructed and admonished God's people, Moses and Daud, and a more recent Zara'wah, Yada, who is devoted to heralding their message. While they have different roles and have lived at very different times, Yahowah has empowered and enabled each to effectively warn and correct his people. We have been tasked with the most enjoyable and frustrating job in the world. But no matter how much Yahowah does through us, in the end, we are trying to reach the most arrogant and stubborn people in the world, those who have made the worst decisions regarding God. And 323 Therefore, most continue to impute and plot evil against the Almighty by being religious. They turn, but not to the Most High, Loal. They are like the UN-taught bow, this unfit and treacherous source of potential power, they are akin to an unpredictable weapon and misappropriated interpretation of the rainbow, from Forkchi. Their political and religious leaders, their military officers, government officials, elitists, and royalty, will fall, will fail, be attacked, conquered, and die, by Korib, the sword and dagger, fever and desolation, Korib, because of the froth, fury, and fierceness, Minzam, from the indignation and impudence, the disrespect and brazenness, the rudeness and audacity, of their tongue, Lashon, of their speech. This will be ridiculed by others, be mocked and scorned, while creating further derision, Zaulig, scorn, ridicule, mocking, contempt, and stammering, in the realm of religious and political oppression, in the land of the despots and tyrants, within the cauldrons of military and economic subjugation, throughout the region of coercive cruelty where slaves are confined and restricted by political persecution, considered foes, besieged, and assaulted as if shut up inside concentration camps. Yahowah, he frees, Hosea 7:16. This is proof positive that mocking the absurdity of Yisrael's response to the Almighty is godly and not evidence of anti-Semitism. Clearly, God appreciates the need to acknowledge and address this problem head-on. The illusion that Judaism is consistent with Yahowah's intent with Abraham must be shattered for there to be any hope of Jews returning to God. 324 For now, they turn but not to the Most High, because for now, whether progressive, conservative, reform, or Haredim, Jews are listening to their political pundits and rabbis rather than Yahowah. As a result, God's people have come to resemble Ramaya Kshet, an unfit and treacherous source of potential power, even a misappropriated interpretation of the rainbow as the sign of the covenant. God is not exonerating the people, but he is blaming Sahem, their political and religious leaders. They have and will continue to fall and die by Korib, the sword and dagger, by fever and desolation. Korib is where the Torah was revealed and serves as the point of separation between Yahowah and Rabbinic Judaism. Zam is a pejorative, addressing the unsavory nature of Jewish political and religious rhetoric. The Zam, froth, fury, and fierceness of their speech will be their undoing. Righteous indignation is godly when directed at religion, but it is Zam, disrespectful and audacious when derisive of Yeh. When it comes to identifying the cause and culprits behind the lag, ridicule and contempt Jews have endured in the Roman Catholic, Muslim, conspiratorial, and now progressive spheres of caustic and oppressive influence. According to God, Israel's political and religious leadership is largely to blame. The abuse they have suffered has been, to a significant extent, a self-inflicted wound. Two of the three most salient reasons Jews have been estranged from God and have suffered at the hands of their abusers are boldly proclaimed in this next statement. The 325 the removal of Yahowah's name from the lexicon of the people, was delineated in Hosheh's 2nd chapter. As for the shofar and the vulture, this is a funeral. The religious ways must die for there to be reconciliation. To your lips, sound, el chekotter, the shofar, the ram's horn trumpet to call people's attention to important events on Yahowah's calendar, particularly Taruw'ah, as if there were, a vulture, an eagle, and a bird of prey, nesher, over the household, the family and home, al-Baith, the familial dwelling place, of Yahowah, Yahowah. This is because, the reason is that, they became frustrated, and based upon their intense feelings of animosity, they transgressed and passed over, improperly disregarding, they arrogantly departed and sought to repeal, getting rid of and banishing, thereby separating themselves from and becoming alienated and self-reliant by meddling in opposition to the agreement between parties pursuant to, perfect, my covenant, Berith Eni, my family-oriented relationship agreement, and my Torah. Torah Eni, my source of teaching and guidance, instructions and directions. They have been rebellious and revolting, defiant and offensive, Pasha, they are incalcitrant and indignant, argumentative and disloyal. Hosheh, he saves, Hosea 8:1. This is our call to action. The shofar is being sounded throughout Yada Yahowah. We are boldly proclaiming that vultures are gathering over God's family. And while we are describing an impending funeral, there will be a subsequent spiritual resurrection. Dead to religion, a remnant of Yahweh will be born anew into the covenant. Dead to the Talmud, some Jews will be receptive to the Torah. 326 If it was not for the fact that Yisra'el is Yahowah's home on earth, the funeral would be decrying the end of what had been God's people. And while they have rejected and betrayed him, because of who he is, a remnant of Yisrael will rise out of the worthless ash of Ephraim. Yahowah wants us to warn his people and to inform them, to correct and then guide them. And that is why he is asking us to raise and sound the shofar at this time. And this is our message: all of Israel's problems, and the resolution of everything which ails Yahweh, could be resolved. After rejecting religion and politics, respect Yahowah's Shem, accept the conditions of his Berith, learn from his Torah, and answer his Mikra. Since it is not complicated, since it is not obscured, why are so few responding intelligently? And let's be clear, when a religious Jew claims to be Torah observant in the sense of studying Yahowah's Torah, listening to God, and doing as he requests, he is lying. And from Yahowah's perspective, they would be less objectionable if they simply told the truth and acknowledged that they prefer their lies to his guidance. Since the religious have misrepresented Yahowah's Torah, claiming that it is comprised of a set of laws rather than God's teaching, it may be useful to consider the Hebrew basis of this title. Torah Eni, my instruction and teaching, my source of guidance and direction, derived from my signed, written, and enduring, Torah, way of treating people, giving you the means to explore, find, and choose, Yara, the source of instruction, teaching, guidance, and direction that flows from me, which provides answers to facilitate your restoration and return, even your response and reply to that which is good, pleasing, beneficial, healing, and right. And that which causes you to be acceptable and lovable, by Towrah, purifying and cleansing you, 327 providing you with the opportunity to change your attitude, thinking, and direction. And while this comprehensive etymological definition of Torah is accurate, indeed, evidentially and rationally irrefutable, the disingenuous of religious persuasion would have the beguiled believe that there is the law of Moses. Knowing better, Yahowah admonishes them. They continually cry out to me, La Azak, they wail and weep to me, summoning me for help. They make public outcries in pain and emotional anguish. Kal imperfect, my God, Elohim any, we of Yisrael are aware of and acknowledge you, Yada Yahowah, we, even as individuals who struggle and compete with God, know of and respect you. Hosea 8-2. Yisra'el, individuals who fight with God, Yisra'el, those who contend with the Almighty, stink, there is a foul-smelling stench about them for having spurned and rejected, Zanich, are odious because they have spurned and cast aside, tossing away, Kal perfect, that which is good and beneficial, pleasing and desirable, Tob, that which is joyful, prosperous, productive, and beautiful. So those who oppose them, Oyeb, those openly hostile, with animosity and rancor toward them, will pursue and persecute them, Radaf Hu. Hosea, he frees, Hosea 8:3. It is all a lie, always has been. That is the nature of religion, and especially Judaism, from God's standpoint. The religious claim to know and acknowledge, even to love and to serve, God. Some claim to speak for him, but none of that is true. There is a stench and stigma to religion that God detests. Faith stinks. It is the most odious of human institutions because it spurns the truth, casting aside and 328 tossing away all that is good and productive, replacing the benefits of the covenant with the stench of syncretism in a cesspool of debilitating notions. And this plague is worse among Jews than any other ethnicity because their race and their religion have been Babel, intermixed such that they are now homogenized. The first and the worst of these bore the same name, Shaul, the people's choice for king and apostle. They have set up rulers and coronated kings, Hemmelech, they have established their rulers, but not through me, while lo mineni, apart and separate from me, being contentious and divisive in their governance and leadership, so, in ways that I did not acknowledge or appreciate, while lo yada, in a manner that I did not choose, teach, or respect. With their silver and gold, Keziphem Wazahabhem, they have fashioned Asar, created, religious icons and objects of worship for themselves, Lahem Azab, things which they idolize. As a result, Laman, for this reason, they will be cut off, Karath, they will be uprooted, cut out, and banished, Nephil imperfect. Hosea, he protects, Hosea 8:4. The only nation on earth that Yahowah has recommended the leadership and chosen the man to be king is Yisra'el. And even there, he did so infrequently. God has never and will never choose or authorize a ruler for any nation other than his own, Yisra'el. And even then, he will only endorse one more, a man who has already been selected as King of Kings. This means that all the many thousands of kings and queens, pharaohs and Caesars, czars and fuhrs, prime ministers and presidents who have claimed otherwise were lying. They were all leading a parade away from Yahowah 329 and to the demise of his people. They were all contentious and divisive in their governance, doing things the Almighty did not appreciate. Follow the money and you will know what a man or woman worships. Witness how they invest it, and you will know their heart. Samaria, Shomarown, the observant, the capital city of the northern kingdom, your bull, Egalath, it stinks and is rejected, Zanich, it is odious and unacceptable, its stench is spurned and will be removed. My anger is aroused and burns against them, Cheraf eni Barhem, my frustration and disappointment are kindled toward them, I am fuming as my animosity is enraged against them. For how long, Admate, will they be incapable of shedding this filth while failing to appreciate the means to be perfected so as to be innocent, lo yakol nikaon, will they refuse emancipation from the cause of their guilt and thus remain unacceptable, failing to accomplish something worthwhile? Hosea, he delivers, Hosea 8:5. We have it directly from Yahowah's mouth, religious BS is odious, its stench is unacceptable. It stinks to high heaven, the most loving being in the universe, its most compassionate, merciful, and kind, hates. For our love to be similarly genuine, we must also learn what, why, when, and how to hate. In this case, God is showing his aversion to religion. He is antagonized because Judaism is harming those he would otherwise be able to love and who would love him in return. The object of his righteous indignation, odious religious bull $vertical bar plus, has been spread so far and wide that the overwhelming preponderance of people fail to 330 appreciate the means Yahowah has mercifully provided to perfect us, thereby saving us from this plague of death. In Judaism, there is no means to life, perfection, adoption, or enrichment as a result of the religious interpretations of the Modim. Rabbis remain so hostile to Chag Matzah, and what the Messiah and Son of God, the Sha'aruwr, has done, that they completely ignore the most essential mikra, leaving their souls corrupted by Judaism. By failing to capitalize upon Daud's fulfillment of Pesach, along with their Keynesian approach to the menu, life in the Berith is forestalled. Having made a mess of Pesach, while ignoring the mikra of Matzah and Bikurim, all that is left for the religious is an unfulfilling life and then death estranged from Yahowah. Seeking to replicate Cain's unacceptable offering, the doorway to life remains closed. Rather than accept Daud's offer to carry their guilt away, the religious continue to wallow in the chamets, yeast of Judaism. Instead of becoming an enriched and empowered child in the covenant family, deny the source of these gifts. The fact remains, Rabbinic Judaism began as a direct result of denying Daud as the Messiah and Son of God, and then disavowing his fulfillment of Pesach and Matzah to enable Bikurim and Shabuw'ah. They have impeded all progress to God, blocking the way with religious laws and rituals. They have tear-gassed themselves and are now blinded, choking on the fumes. Unwilling to listen to Yahweh's message, and consider his warning to them, rabbis replaced Taruw'ah with the Babylonian myth of Rosh Hashanah. This is particularly telling because Taruw'ah exists to herald the role father and son have played in fulfilling the Mikra. It serves to announce Yahweh's and Daud's return on Yom Kippurim, the last chance to reconcile the relationship. The importance of Taruw'ah to God's people 331 is being underscored here by the multiple references to blowing the shofar. It is then telling that the day rabbis have most upended by turning reconciliations into a time of affliction, assures that the religious will be too distracted being Jewish to be counted among those welcoming Yahweh and Daud back home. Busy twirling chickens above their heads and bobbing incoherently toward a stone wall, they remain clueless as to the significance of Sukkah, where we are invited back into the garden to camp out with our father and his firstborn. Religious Jews have done this to themselves, and God is rightfully angry about it. He will not endure this stench much longer. God does not ask questions without first providing the answers. Judaism, and its wicked stepchildren, Christianity, Islam, and communism, are all within 10 years of infecting the last victim. This will all be cleaned up and removed between Kippurim and Sukkah in 2033, year 6000 year. By contrast, this is the result of, and it has come from, Minwahu, Yisra'el, individuals who contend with God, Yisra'el. A craftsman made it, Sha'aruwr, an idol maker constructed it, so it is not of God, while lo Elohim hu, therefore, there is nothing godly about it. Therefore, Egel Shomarown, the bull being observed, Egel Shomarown, the bull of Samaria, will be, higher, splintered and shattered, Shababim, will be broken up and fragmented. Hausha, he liberates, Hosea 8:6. We have a choice. We can serve the God who made us, or the religious can continue to worship the gods man has conceived. They are not the same, nor is the result. 332 most prefer gods made in man's image. They seem to like them because they are like them. They do not ask anything more of them than they are offering. They can be molded into whatever shape they find pleasing and are always accommodating. As a result, Hashem is the Adonai of Judaism, the God they throw in everyone else's face. We have mentioned it previously, but it bears repeating. The bull served as the most common depiction of Baal, the Lord. The happy, Apis, bull cult was so prevalent among the priests and pharaohs that, upon leaving them, the golden calf would be the first of many gods made and worshipped by the Yisra'elites. As a symbol of death and resurrection, of being sacrificed and reborn, Apis served as the intermediary between humans and their gods, and as the guide to the afterlife. When trying to syncretize the Greek and Egyptian religions, following Alexander's lead, Ptolemy anthropomorphized Apis, giving the bull a human head, and calling the result Osiris, which became the model upon which the story of the Christian Jesus would be written. Because, they consistently sow the wind, ruach zera, they continually and actually toss seed at the spiritual and spirituality, imperfect, they will continually reap, kazar, they will shorten their lives by harvesting what they have sown, imperfect, a whirlwind in the end, sulfur, therefore, they will eventually be curtailed by a tempest, vexed by a whirling gale, and upended by a hurricane, a destructive and ruinous storm doing them in. That which has arisen and grown in prominence, that which has ascended and been established, standing up using the metaphor of standing grain, will no longer survive, will lose the ability to sprout up or branch out. 333 This can no longer produce grain that can be ground into flour, Baaliasar. Even should the possibility exist that it would produce something, Yuliasar, that even if something could be made of it, illegal aliens, Zar, illegitimate occupiers who do not belong, would accept it, embrace it, and devour it, Baalahu, would consume it, swallowing it whole. Hausha, he saves, Hosea 8:7. One cannot throw seeds into the wind and expect to yield a productive crop. This is, after all, how weeds spread, and religions are much like them. All attempts at spirituality end up directed at a spirit other than Yahweh's Ruach Kodesh. This problem is exemplified in Paul's New Testament battles between the spirit and the flesh, in the rabbinical Zohar, and well as with Muhammad's struggle with jinn throughout the Quran. Fact is, both Paul and Muhammad admitted to being demon-possessed, and it likely holds true for others, like Akiba, Yochai, and Maimonides. Even within the Christian mythology, Jesus lashes out at Peter and infers that he is Satan immediately after Peter lies and claims that Jesus is the Christ and the Son of the living God. Those who play into spiritualism will reap a tempest. And since America is the nation most plagued by the swirling nature of hurricanes and tornadoes, it may be prophetic of where so many Jews would eventually settle. Since there is no one more prominent and influential in the lives of Jews than rabbis, exalted ones, this statement does not bode well for them. They will not survive Yahowah's return. The concluding line of the previous statement suggests that whatever feeble crops might grow over the ensuing years will be consumed by interlopers, Christians and 334 Muslims who will invade the Promised Land. This is because Jews will have forfeited their birthright. Yisra'el, those who oppose God, will be devoured, Ba'al, will be swallowed and consumed. Even now, otter, they are, higher, Vaha Gawim, with the Gentiles, Gawim, non-Yisra'elites, people of other races and places. They can be likened to, car, a vessel, Kelly, an object or thing, no one values or wants, ein chefetz bar hu, no one finds desirable or enjoys. Hausha, he frees, Hosea 8:8. From Yahowah's perspective, Yahweh became indistinguishable from the Gawim, equally disgusting and worthless. On their own, the Assyrians would devour Yisra'el, leaving only Yahweh. However, they would not allow their slaves to integrate into their culture, depositing most of them well before reaching their homeland. Later, the Romans would swallow Yahweh, creating the diaspora. And for most of the next 1,800 years, Jews were relegated to living in ghettos and shtetls, an unwanted people who were forced to survive out of sight and out of mind. Some may counter this assessment by noting that Israel is the most contested place on earth. And while that is so, it isn't because they want to share the land with Jews but, instead, remove them. Moreover, the only reason that Christians, Muslims, and progressives want their land is because they need to claim what belongs to God to prove that they are right. If only they knew just how low a bar they were trying to step over. For they have exalted, Yda Ashur, the blessed Mother of God and Queen of Heaven, Ashur, seeking a relationship with benefits with Assyria and their goddess, as a jackass, Perah, wild donkey or ass, 335 isolated and alone, Badad Lahu, separated and segregated. Ephraim, the worthless ash, Ephraim, useless carbon, has sold itself out for favors, prostituting itself for affection, Tana Habim, selling love for money and buying its adoring relationships. Hausha 8-9. In addition, Gam Ky, they indenture themselves, selling themselves out, Tana, they strike bargains in an attempt to win friends and influence people, among the Gentile nations, Baha Gawim, with people of different ethnicities and cultures, so a time will come in the sequence of events when, otter, I will collect them, Kabatz Hem, I will assemble them. Then, Wah, the political and religious leaders, the government officials and societal elite, Melexar, the kings, prime ministers, councillors, military officers, those with titles that ascribe status, will be dishonored and held in contempt. Chol, will be seen as common, profane, and defiled, perceived as worthless. Maut, seen as meaningless drivel, as a result of, min, submitting to this oppressive burden and imposing this hardship as a result of their pronouncements and predictions. Massa. Hausha, he protects, Hosea 8:10. When we read of Ashur in a prophetic text, we are typically going to render it as Assyria, denoting the exceedingly vicious empire that would enslave Yisraelites. However, since the kingdom was named after Asherah, the region's most acclaimed goddess, we can also include her in the definition. Further, since the name of the supposed Mother of God and Queen of Heaven was derived from Asher, it is sometimes useful to incorporate this word's qualities into the resulting translation. After all, it is by syncretizing Christianity with Babylonian mythology that Roman Catholics came up with the blessed Mother of God and sought to form a beneficial relationship 336 with the Queen of Heaven. Even their most important holiday, Easter, was named in her honor. The third condition of the covenant is that we trust and rely upon Yahowah rather than upon the wiles of men. By negotiating a peace treaty with this evil empire, they violated God's agreement with them. Further, by paying tributes to Assyria, they were prostituting themselves, indenturing the people, to garner favor. For having done so, Israel's religious and political leaders are being held in contempt. Yahowah is going to gather them up and judge them, although his verdict has already been rendered. They will be seen as common rather than set apart, perceived as worthless and dishonored, for having imposed an unnecessary and counterproductive burden upon God's people. Their pronouncements and predictions will come back to bite them in the end. Lest we forget that Yahowah's primary issue with his people has been and continues to be their devotion to Judaism, God reminds us. Indeed, Ephraim, useless carbon and worthless ash, has greatly increased the size and quantity, Rabbi, has a multiplicity, of the altars, my speech, the places of worship and making sacrifices, to missing the way, la chatter, for the purpose of leading people astray due to perversions and corruptions, existing for him as, high Allahu, altars, my speech, to mislead, la chatter, to miss the way and to lead others astray. Hausha, he delivers, Hosea 8:11. Yahowah has impugned both religion and politics, places of worship and national agendas, clerics and kings, all of whom are to blame for the plight of the people. They have not only led countless souls astray, and away from God, but have done so to satiate their own personal cravings for power and money. Their schemes reflect nothing more than the bias and prejudice of men. 337 The irony is that, while they will all protest that they are serving God and directing the faithful to Him, in reality, every religious institution misses the way. They lead away from Yahowah, not to Him. Theirs are not houses of God but, instead, monuments to the myths of men. When approaching Yahowah, all we need is sufficient light to read His Torah, guidance. Elaborate buildings and rituals just get in the way. I have written down, katab, I have engraved and inscribed, creating an enduring record in writing, imperfect, for Him, lahu, for Him to approach and draw near, Torah any, my teaching and guidance, instructions and directions, Torah any, my education and explanations, my advice and counsel, and my lessons and assistance, innumerable times, providing some 10,000 examples, ribbo, on numerous occasions. And yet, they regard, chasab, they consider and have determined that, it as if it were, ka asher, something alien and foreign, zar, something strange, no longer relevant or appropriate, even delegitimized. Hausha, he liberates, Hosea 8:12. Yahowah's overwhelming preferences for the written word. Its indelible nature is more enduring and effective, reaching more people, more accurately, with more information than is possible with oral communication. It is so vastly superior to the oral alternative that, when it comes to specifying the terms of an agreement between parties in business, one quickly learns that, if you have written anything, it will be deemed that you have written everything. No amount of oral testimony will supersede the written witness in a courtroom, proving who said what to whom, where, and why. There are many advantages to inscribing instructions. Prophecies, for example, are no longer hearsay and can be proven whenever a written record of the prediction is found 338 dated prior to its fulfillment. Such is the merit of the Dead Sea Scrolls. A written document does not change with time, and it reads the same no matter who is considering it or when they are looking. With writing, we can proceed at our own pace, stopping and resuming whenever necessary. Validation is readily attainable because each word and thought can be investigated independently and as thoroughly as desired. We can also soar over or dive into a written text to assess its broad outlines before drilling down to investigate the details that comprise the picture. And we can take our time to consider how each stroke shades the intended meaning. Without punctuation, it would be difficult to ascertain the precise number of statements within the Torah and prophets. For example, I typically begin a new sentence following a conjunction because, with amplification, shorter segments are more readily assimilated into our thinking. However, considering Yahowah's propensity for making as many connections as we can process, in the original manuscript, there are likely 10,000 specific instructions. This estimate is derived in part from the realization that there are just over twice that many verses, with 2 or 3 typically devoted to a single statement. There is no shortage of clarity or specificity. Everything we need to know to engage in the covenant is provided. Even if they weren't argumentative and contradictory, there would have been no advantage to a Talmud, New Testament, or Quran. They are at best, errant and superfluous, and at worst, they are satanic. Each time I search to see how the rabbinical approach differs from Yahowah's intent, when considering the religious point of view, I'm always disheartened to see rabbis quoting one another 10-1 over God. Moreover, they are careful to credit the religious commentator, 339 providing his name, while never once mentioning Yahowah's. For them, the Talmud is familiar, the Torah foreign, the oral law relevant, and the written text delegitimized. Concerning my sacrificial gift, Zebach Habeni, regarding the provision I offered, they butcher the message, Zabach Basar, they slaughter the proclamation, consuming it in a ruinous and destructive manner, Akal, devouring it. Yahowah, Yahowah, the Almighty's proper designation pronounced as instructed by His Torah, guidance on His higher, existence and His role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, is displeased with them and will not accept them, Lo Ratzahem, does not agree with them and views them unfavorably. Therefore, it is reasonable that, Otter, he will continue to actually remember, Zakar, he will always recall, imperfect, their perversions and corruptions, aown, aown hem, their habitual wrongdoing and subsequent liability, and he will hold them accountable by punishing them. Wapakad, he will summon them to judge them, kal imperfect, for being wrong, having missed the way, and for having led others astray, chatathem, for them being errant, offensive, and immoral, having forfeited the opportunity by going astray. They will return, shub, they will once again be misled, to religious and political oppression, hem to the despots and tyrants within the cauldrons of military and economic subjugation, to the authority figures in the place of coercive cruelty where slaves are confined and restricted by political persecution, considered foes, besieged, and assaulted as if shut up inside a 340 concentration camp. Hawsha, he delivers, Hosea 8:13. The intent of Daud's sacrificial gifts of Pesach and Matzah has been butchered by the rabbis, turning the most magnanimous and beneficial offerings into perverted religious jargon and meaningless histrionics. The doorway to life and threshold of perfection devolved into religious meals, with rabbis setting the menu. There has not been a single rabbi willing or able to explain the purpose of Passover or UnYeasted Bread, much less Bikurim, Shabuw'ah, Taruw'ah, Kippurim, or Sukkah. It has all been degraded into cedars, etrogs, and screaming chickens. So Yahweh is displeased with them, affirming that there will be no rabbis in Shamaim. It is little wonder that rabbis removed Yahweh's name, adding one of their own, and then replaced his Torah with their Talmud. They don't much like what he has to say, and be assured, it is mutual. To be fair, God will remember the ways these perverted and corrupted clerics have harmed his people. And by holding them accountable for precluding Jews from engaging in the covenant, the religious will be punished, with many enduring an eternity in Sheol. They have deliberately and knowingly led his children astray, misleading them, and for that there is no forgiveness. Yisra'el would not return to Miriam in the sense of Egypt, but they would spend a couple of thousand years enduring the most oppressive political and religious regimes the world would ever know. They would be treated cruelly, even enslaved, but there would be no reason to point the finger because they had done this to themselves. And remarkably, by inheriting the parliamentary system from their former oppressor, a decade prior to Yahweh's return Israel has cobbled together an exceedingly oppressive religious regime of their own. 341 Deliberately and counterproductively, Yisraelites were beguiled into overlooking everything Yahweh had done for them, including saving them. They would even forget his name. Yisra'el, the individual who contends with God, has forgotten, sheqer, has ignored and overlooked, failing to be mindful of, kal imperfect, the one who has acted and engaged on his behalf, ethasahu, the one who has devoted himself to him, even creating him. Instead, he has built palaces and temples, Bana Hakel, he has constructed public worship centers and spacious mansions. And Yahweh, has numerous fortified cities, Rabbi Batso. But I will send, Shalak, I will release, fire, flames within his population centers, that it may consume, Kal, so that it will devour and destroy, its fortresses and citadels, Ammon high, military defenses and strongholds. Hawsha, he saves, Hosea 8:14. God does not want anyone to build a house of worship or prayer for him. He is not impressed when we spend our time and money constructing things he will just tear down upon his return. Instead, let's increase our knowledge and understanding of him, and celebrate the difference between enlightening and combustible. Yisrael was looking for love in all the wrong places. It may be human nature to seek support, to encourage others to like us, and to form alliances, but how can chasing after those who are wrong make anyone right? Yisrael, individuals who contend with God, Yisrael, do not celebrate, al-samak, do not continually rejoice or be happy, Havanagilavinisma, 342 of your own volition, choose not to consistently consume mood elevators to achieve contentment and, while it is your choice, refrain from habitually drinking alcohol to be happy, kal imperfect jussive, by circling and spinning around, then shrieking to God, el-jil, exalting the Almighty by whirling around ecstatically, like other people, ka-ha-am. Similar to followers who are in close association. For, indeed, this is because, you have prioritized whoring around, pandering like immoral prostitutes feigning affection, Zana, you have been unfaithful and unreliable, behaving like a harlot, soliciting love and expecting to be paid for the performance, kal perfect, over and above being with your God, min al Elohim otter, separating from and against your God. You have desired and cherished, Ahab, you have been fond of and adored, even loved, kal perfect, being paid to arouse and titillate others, ethnon, the prostitute's payment, the whore's wages, and the wretch's reward for being hired as a harlot, performing by providing sex for money, especially being rewarded for being religious, in every community gathering place and even upon the Almighty's threshing floor to winnow the grain, al-shurl gor and dogin. Upon the very foundation of God where harvested grain is separated from the chaff. Hawsha 9-1. The threshing floor, goren, the foundation of the house of God where harvested grain is separated from the useless and discarded chaff, as well as the central gathering places within the community, and winepress, YYV8C6, the vat, the place to collect that which has been crushed, will not shepherd, guide, nourish, or protect them, lo rahem, will not care for them or tend to their needs, and the new wine of disinheritance, wathiraush, the wine of being dispossessed and impoverished, will delude them and cause them to be disappointed, to be disowned. 343 and to cower, bowing in submission, kakash bar high, will lead to them being emaciated, persecuted, and fail for having disavowed the relationship. Hausha, he frees, Hosea 9:2. The 9th chapter resumes where the 8th concluded, with Yahowah pleading with his people to eschew religious observances. Using the most common rendering of Samak, God does not want Yisraelites to celebrate religious holidays by forming circles and spinning around while shrieking ecstatically to exalt their God. But a deeper dive into Samak comes with a warning, admonishing us not to use alcohol or psychiatric drugs to elevate our mood. These inebriants inhibit our ability to be judgmental, thereby forestalling the capacity to think our way to Yahowah while avoiding the religious alternatives. Alcohol and drugs, however, were commonly used to make believers more susceptible to being controlled by the priests and prostitutes of yesteryear. Therefore, this can be interpreted literally and allegorically. So can shrieking while dancing in circles. If you have ever attended a Jewish wedding or bar mitzvah, you have witnessed Jews form a circle, grasp hands, and celebrate by singing Hava Nagila, let us rejoice while dancing the Hora. As an interesting aside, the melody originated among the Hasidic in Ukraine to convey a nigun, wordless prayer to what's his name. The chosen people were positioned to be different, not common. They were to be neither religious nor political, but free and thoughtful instead of controlled and beguiled. Said another way, Yahowah wanted Yahweh to listen to and follow him, not Goim. But they have made a religion of doing the opposite. They scream and shout, bow and pray, celebrating holidays by wallowing in religious law. They are just like other people, wrong. 344 On the outside, religion is all body and no soul. Since there is no way to know, no means to understand, no proof or validation, and nothing but faith, religions rely on imposing edifices, elaborate rituals, and ecstatic celebrations to impress believers. They provide a veneer of credibility over a hollow, or should I say hallowed, core when their words betray them. The more people who can be convinced or compelled to acquiesce, the more believable the cult becomes and the easier it is to mislead and control additional converts. It feeds upon itself. On the inside, religion is all pretense without substance. Believers profess their faith to one another to reinforce the illusion. They inculcate themselves such that cult members are indoctrinated, not educated. And while this is prevalent to some degree among every faith, it is tantamount to being Haredi. The ultra-Orthodox live together and dress alike, quarantining themselves within intellectual ghettos where the walls are contrived of delusions. It is a prison for the mind. According to God, religious Jews have prioritized whoring around, pandering like immoral prostitutes, feigning their affection for one another and the God they have modeled after themselves. They have become unfaithful and unreliable, expecting to be paid for this performance, one designed to prioritize the words and will of the rabbis over and above being with God. Fulfilling this prophecy, we find the Haredi paid by the citizens of Israel to be religious, acting like the whores they have always been. This sickness has metastasized to the point that the rabbinical definition of a Jew is predicated upon religion rather than race. Being a descendant of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, a child of Yisra'el, no longer matters if an individual dares to challenge rabbinical homogeny. To impose their authority, they have had to erase their identity, using Judaism's version of 345 replacement theology to create an impenetrable religious edifice in opposition to Yahowah. Whether it was Paul, Akiba, or Muhammad, the priest, rabbi, or imam, they were all prostitutes, pandering for the whore's wages. Their lives become a performance. Their reward for arousing and beguiling others is power and popularity and often sexual exploits and ill-gotten gain. Knowing that they have become unlovable, they demand what they cannot earn. Had that been the extent of it, the end of it, bygones would have been forgotten. But since they had nothing to offer, nothing valuable to give, they feigned their performance upon the threshing floor of the Almighty. They separated the people in the place where God intended to harvest the grain once it was free of the chaff. Now blown by the spirit of religion, the shepherds of the public places would mislead and malnourish the flock, pouring out the wine of disinheritance to delude those who would be disowned. As a result, millions of Jews over thousands of years would cower in submission, estranged from their God. They will not remain, lo yasab, they will not continue to dwell, kal imperfect, in the land, bar eres within the realm, of Yahowah, Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of Yahowah, our Eloah, God has directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his existence and Shalom, restoration. Instead, Ephraim, useless carbon, will return, Shub, will once again turn, perfect, to the religious and political oppressors, Miraim, to the despots and tyrants within the cauldrons of military and economic subjugation, to the authority figures in the place of coercive cruelty where slaves are confined and restricted by political persecution, considered foes, besieged, and assaulted as if shut up inside a 346 concentration camp. And in Assyria, Ba'al and Asherah, they will consume that which is defiled and filthy, Tamakal, they will devour that which is impure and improper. Hosea 9-3. They will not pour out, lo nazak, wine, yain, to approach, Yahowah. Their sacrifices, Zebach will not be acceptable to him, lo Arab lahu, they will neither please nor impress him. It will be like religious bread to them, filled with their iniquity and idolatry, kar lechamoni lahem, comparable to bread filled with their false ideas, vain thoughts, and troublesome notions, replete with mourning rites for their dead. Everyone who consumes it, shurlakalhu, all those who eat of it, will be defiled, seen as infamously filthy and flawed, will be impure and improper, perceived as either dross or demonic. As a result, their bread, lechem their battles and contentiousness, is a concern to their souls, la nipesh becomes part of the consciousness. They will not approach or enter, lo they will not return and they are not coming into, imperfect, there is no way that they are ever entering, the home and family, Vaith, the household of Yahowah, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his existence and Shalom, restoration. Hosea, he protects, Hosea 9:4. There was clearly a benefit to having Hosea experience just how difficult, indeed disgusting, it is to be around religious whores. While Yahowah inspired these words, they were filtered through the conscience of a man who understood, who could empathize with, the Almighty. This rebuke against religion, particularly Judaism, is as 347 poignant as anything we have read throughout the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. Rabbis rose to power, and their iteration of Judaism flourished, coterminous with their denial of Yahowah's fulfillment of Chag Matzah in year 4000. Simultaneously, the vicious antisemitism and persecution of imperial Rome which metastasized into Roman Catholicism, courtesy of one of their own, afforded the rabbis an enemy that galvanized the people's attention. And if making one mortal adversary was insufficient, rabbis would make another through their dealings with Muhammad. With a kibbutz fanning the flames of this religious revolt against the Almighty with his false Messiah, Yahowah's prophecy was fulfilled. They would not remain in the land of Yahowah. Instead, they would reverse course and return to the places of religious and political oppression. They would negate the Exodus, and in the process, they would relinquish the benefits of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. They would die, corrupted and alone. In denial of what Yahowah and Dowd have done for them, exiled from the land, and having provoked the beast that destroyed the house of God, Yisraelites became even more unacceptable. Rather than acknowledge that the chamets, yeast being removed from the matzah signified the pervasive and perverted nature of their religion, they doubled down and filled the loaf with iniquity and idolatry. By devouring their religion, becoming connoisseurs of it, rather than avoiding it, every last Yisraelite was defiled, with the rabbis becoming the source of the most insidious poison. Their fatal attraction was to be filthy and flawed while pretending otherwise. There isn't a single rabbi in Shamayim, heaven, living in God's home as part of Yahowah's family, although Sheol, hell is filled with them. And it is not just that they 348 poisoned themselves with their toxic religion, they infected everyone around them. It was a breach of trust, the greatest misappropriation of life ever pursued. And even now, there is no reason to waste one's breath calling them home because they will never be part of Yahowah's family. The covenant is not for them. God said so. Our mission, and that of our sponsor, Yahowah, and his son, Dowd, is to convey their message of return to those who are not religious. Unencumbered is where he found Adam, Noach, Abraham, Sarah, Moses, Yahshua, Shamuel, Dowd, Yeshua, Yirmiah, Hosea, and even me. It is where they will reintroduce themselves to their people should they be open to an invitation and be willing to listen. What about you? What will you do, Mahasah? How will you respond, act, and engage, imperfect, approaching the day, la yaum, nearing the time, of the mode, eternal witness to the appointed meeting, mode, of the scheduled appointment which is designated and fixed, a compound of Mao and Ed, of whom the eternal testimony is about and to whom the everlasting witness pertains, during the time, while la yaum, of the Chag, feast, Chag, celebration, of Yahowah, an accurate presentation of the name of Eloah. God is guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his higher existence. Hosea, he saves, Hosea 9:5. This is the ultimate question for Jews because, in Rabbinic Judaism, the most important of the mode each year, Chag Matzah, is no longer observed. The day designed to rid our souls of the stench and stigma of religion was incorporated into a religious interpretation of Passover as an ingredient. So, since the Messiah made the sacrifice required to perfect our souls, his Father is asking 349 what you intend to do about it. Are you going to follow the rabbis into hell or him to heaven? There is also the possibility that Yahowah is addressing Yom Kippurim, the day he endowed return. If so, then this family reunion is a Chag feast, as it should be for the celebrants on the happiest day of God's long existence. And perhaps this time rabbis have it right since they have made their interpretation of Yom Kippur a time of mourning and affliction, which is exactly what they will endure. For the longest time, this could have been presented as a choice between life and death, not just between being perfected and corrupted. However, soon that will no longer be so. As we enter the time of Yaakov's troubles and approach Yahowah's return, surviving souls will be seen as with God or against him. There will be no neutral parties. Individuals who would otherwise have been negated and destroyed will now be eternally estranged. As we near the final Yatzah, Exodus, now from Babylon, we find that many Jews and most of the world are headed in the opposite direction. For behold, Kyhine, pay attention to this detail, they move about, Holok, they travel around, because of, men, the worship of demonic spirits and the resulting and subsequent oppression and persecution, Shod, evil spirits, being plundered and looted by malignant influences. The religious and political tyrants, Miraim, the despots within the cauldrons of military and economic subjugation, the authority figures in the places of coercive cruelty, will obtain them, Kabats Hem, will gather and collect them. Moth, Memphis, Moth, religious and political capital of Lower Egypt, center of Apis, bull worship at the time of this writing, also the location of the 350 pyramids, will bury them, Kabar Hem, will entomb them. Brambles and briars, chymos, nettles and weeds, will take possession of and displace, Yarash, will rob them of, their treasured and valued things Makmadlar Kezifhem. Thorns will grow, Chowich, thistles and thickets will be, in their homes, Bar Ohelhem, in their temporary residences. Hausha, he liberates, Hosea 9:6. Shod isn't a term to take lightly. It speaks of cavorting with demons and worshipping evil spirits. As a result, to be shod is to be persecuted and oppressed, plundered of one's soul by the lords in control of religion. It is addressing the Zohar and Kabbalah, spiritual Judaism, the rabbinical path down the dark road to perdition. Based on all we have read, the question we must ask is who is persecuting and oppressing God's people? Who is encouraging the Shod, the malignant influence of demonic worship plundering Yisra'elites? Who are the Miraim, religious and political tyrants confining and troubling Yahweh? Is God speaking of the Romans, Roman Catholics, and Muslims, even Nazis, communists, and progressives, or is he condemning rabbis for their contribution to Yisrael's demise? In context, I think that the answer is obvious. After all, Yahowah is communicating to Jews and condemning Judaism. Hausha was not writing to the Romans, Roman Catholics, Muslims, Nazis, communists, or progressives. The mendacious menace is Judaism. Its most malevolent form is Haredi. But fortunately for them, they are already dressed for their own funeral. I suppose they were planning ahead. This is the reason we find Moth, Memphis, the religious center of Apis, bull worship at the time, presented in this scathing denouncement. As the home of the great 351 pyramids, it is the most recognizable burial site in the world. Considering all Yahowah has said about the rabbinic attraction to the excrement of bulls, and the people's affinity for religious oppression, this is painting a dark picture of Judaism's rendezvous with death, a time of accountability and recompense. Religion is a weed, a thorny thistle, constantly agitating these antagonists. They are as irritating and unproductive as briars and brambles, having traded heaven for hell. Moments ago I mentioned that we are quickly approaching a time of recompense, of holding every soul accountable for their choices. There will be a judgment day, days, Yawmim, of reckoning, of assigning responsibility, and of judgment, Harpekta, of accountability, of visitation and supervision, of oversight and punishment, will come, Bo, will occur. A time, Yawmim, days, of retribution and recompense, Harshilium, of repayment, of a quid pro quo will arrive, Bo, will come. Yisra'el, those contending and struggling against God, Yisra'el, will know and acknowledge, Yada, they will be cognizant and aware, that the prophet claiming to be inspired, Nabi, the religious seer and clairvoyant proclaiming the message of their God, is incapable of understanding, Yul, is ignorant and irrational, a foolish simpleton, stubborn and stupid, and represents a citizenry similarly devoid of reason and sound judgment who are perverted and corrupt, licentious and opinionated, idiots. that the spiritual individual, Sha'aruwr, is a raving lunatic, a psychotic maniac, out of his mind, and insane. Sheqer is erratic and easily panicked, crazy and delusional, preoccupied with frivolous madness, and driven to despair. All participle, the malevolent spirit, has 352 caused the individual to be mad in a vivid and demonstrable manner. Even more, you're exceedingly evil, patently wrong, perverse, and depraved. Aown, you're twisted and corrupting, you're errant and perverting. Abundance of exalted rabbis, many great rabbis, have caused this widespread and tremendous rabbinical, Rabbi, are responsible for this extensive and pervasive, long-enduring and considerable, perfect, animosity and antagonism, enmity by way of a hostile disposition which is controlling and deadly, and results in persecution, stigma, scourge and strife, opposition through debilitating fetters and hated nooses. Howsha, he frees, Hosea 9:7. Let's read that again. Days, Yawmim, of reckoning, of assigning responsibility, and of judgment, of accountability and punishment, Harpakta, will come, a time, Yawmim, of retribution and recompense, Shilum, will arrive, Yisra'el, those contending and struggling against God, Yisra'el, will know and acknowledge, Yada, that the prophet claiming to be inspired, Nabi, is incapable of understanding, as he is an ignorant and irrational, foolish simpleton, stubborn and stupid, and that he represents a citizenry similarly devoid of reason and sound judgment, who are perverted and corrupt, opinionated idiots, and that the spiritual individual, Sha'aruwr, is a raving lunatic, a psychotic maniac, out of his mind, and insane, erratic and easily panicked, delusional and preoccupied with frivolous madness while driven to despair. Sheqer. Even more, you're exceedingly evil, patently wrong, perverse, and depraved. Aown, abundance of exalted rabbis, has caused this 353 widespread and tremendous rabbinical, Rabbi, animosity and antagonism, this enmity by way of a hostile disposition, which is controlling and deadly, becoming a scourge resulting in persecution, stigma. You do not have to marry a religious prostitute to surmise Howsha's drift or appreciate Yahowah's disdain for rabbinic Judaism. I have nothing to add to that which has adroitly communicated. But Yahowah was not done eviscerating his people. The prophet claiming to speak for God, Nabi, the religious pontificator and prognosticator, has ambushed, keeps close watch over, Ephraim, the heap of unproductive ash, in opposition to my God, becoming a fowler's snare, Yakaush baiting his trap, luring in his prey, through all of his ways, Derek Hugh, upon the entirety of his conduct, manners, and paths, a hated noose and debilitating fetter, creating animosity and antagonism leading to subjugation and oppression, stigma, with a hostile disposition which is controlling and deadly, in the household of his God, Hugh. Howsha, he saves, Hosea 9:8. By their own admission, rabbis are now the Nabi of Yisra'el, the men who claim that they have been inspired to speak for what's his name. And according to God, they have ambushed the unwary, luring them into a trap that they have baited with their lies. As a result of the rabbinical snare, a noose has been placed around the neck of God's people, and fetters control them. They are being antagonized by their religion into opposing Yahowah. I recognize, as does God, that every religion is controlling and deadly, replete with fetters and nooses. 354 So, while this could be written of Judaism's stepchildren, Christianity, Islam, or communism, it was said of Yisra'el. After all, there is but one Shabat, and it exists within the territory of Benjamin. Of the 12 tribes, there was none worse. The darkest chapters in the political and religious foibles of Yisra'el are attributable to Benjamin's most infamous sons, both named Shaul. They have become profoundly corrupted, with a complete lack of understanding, and intensely ruinous. They are deeply mired in a slime pit of decay, a cesspool which serves as their prison, as in the days, Yawmim, comparable to the time, of Jaibar, a Benjamite town of ill repute and annihilation. He will remember, Zakar, he will invoke the memory of and remind them of, imperfect, their persistently evil, demonstrably wrong, and deliberately perverse nature, aown, their immorality and irrationality, their iniquity and wickedness, especially their tendency to twist, pervert, and distort. He will record the manner in which they have missed the way and hold them accountable for leading others astray, Pakad Chatakhem. Howsha, he protects, Hosea 9:9. The religious leaders of Yisrael are profoundly corrupt. Yahowah sees them mired in a slime pit of decay, a polluted cesspool that serves as their prison, a place where God's light has been obscured by the filth of the worst kind, human religious excrement. When it comes to naming places of ill repute, Sodom tops the list, but there was worse, Jaibar. It was the place where politics and religion mixed to create a culture of rape and death. It was in Shabuw'ah that the aspirations of Eloi died, just as the rabbis would later abuse and terminate their birthright. 355 Shabuw'ah was a town of Benjamin, representing the wolf who preys on Yah's sheep. The wannabe apostle Paul bragged about being a member of this tribe. King Saul was born here, and he misled Yisra'el from this place. Shabuw'ah was where a band of prophets helped King Saul trap David. More importantly, Shabuw'ah is the Yisraelite Sodom, a city whose morality was as grotesque as the day Yasmalach were harassed while visiting Lot. The story of Shabuw'ah begins in the 19th chapter of Shaphat, Judges. Since Yahweh is going to remind his people of it, we would be wise to bring it to your attention. During the time the Shaphat, Judges served Yisra'el, Eloi, living in the hill country of Ephraim, served as a harbinger of Haushah, having shared his life with a woman who played the harlot. Nonetheless, he loved her and chased after her, seeking to re-establish their broken relationship. He pursued her to her father's house, in Bethlehem, where he was well received. Her father was exceedingly supportive of their reconciliation, inviting the Eloi to stay with him and his wayward daughter in their home. They were being cheerful and good, with a positive approach in their hearts, But behold, the men of the city, worthless and vile individuals, abhorrent sons who had nothing to offer, ben Balial, surrounded, Sabab, the house, pounding upon the door, pushing one another against it, Dapak al-Har-Deleth. Then they said, Wah, to the elderly, Hazakan, man who was the owner of the house, El-Ha-Ish Baal-Ha-Baith, demanding, La-Ma, bring out, Yatsa, the individual, Eth-Ha-Ish, who, for the benefit of their relationship, Asher, came to your home, Bo-El-Baith 356 Atar, so that we might know him, becoming more familiar with him, Yada Yahowah. Shaphat 19:22. So, the man, Ish, who owned the house, Baal-Ha-Baith, withdrew, going out, Yatsa, to them, Elhem. And he said to them, Wa'ama Elhem, no, my brothers, Alacheni, do not bring this evil upon your countrymen, Al-Ra, I beg you, since Asher, this man, Ha-Ish, has come to and entered, into this, my home, Hazael-Baitheni. Do not act, Alasar, in this outrageous and despicable way, doing that which is senseless and foolish, Eth-Ha-Nabalaha-Joth. Shaphat 19:23. Look, here is, my virgin daughter, Bath-Eni-Ha-Bethulah, along with his loving companion, Pelidhu. Please, I want to bring them out, Yatsa Ethem, so that you can either respond and answer to them or abuse and rape them, Anna Ethem, engaging with them, Salahem, in a way which is perceived as good and appropriate, beneficial and pleasing, in your sight, Tob, Einatam. However, concerning this man, Laha-Ish Hazeh, do not act as you have stated, Loasar Dabar, because it is stupid, degrading, and punishable, Ha-Nabalaha-Joth. Shaphat 19:24. But the men were unreceptive and did not yield because they did not want, Ha-Ish, to listen to him, La Shama Lahu. So, the men, Ha-Ish, overpowered and harshly seized, Chazak, his companion and lover, Pelidhu, and forced her to go out, Yatsa, with them into the street, Elhem Ha-Hauls. They exposed her and became intimately aware of her, Yada Ethai, inflicting suffering by harshly abusing and raping her, while Ol-Bahai, continuing all night, Shurl Ha-Layla, until the morning, at Ha-Boka. They finally let her go, Shalak-Hai, as 357 the sun rose and Satan appeared, Ba'al and Asherah. Shaphat 19:25. The woman, Ha-Isha, arrived, and appeared, La Pana, during the morning, Ha-Boka. She fell, neglected and dead, Nafal, at the entrance of the man's house, Petek Beth Ha-Ish, where her upright husband was, Asher Ardown Hisham, serving as a witness to the enlightened, at Ha-Or. Shaphat, Judges 19:26. There are only losers in this story of Benjamin abusively robbing the Eloi of his desire to reconcile his relationship with his great love. It is the saddest of many horrible indications of just how far Yisrael had fallen and how worthless Benjamin had become. To show his disgust, the Eloi cut the woman he had loved, even as she was unfaithful to him, into 12 pieces, sending them to the 12 tribes, putting them on notice of what had occurred. As a result, with Yahweh leading the charge, Benjamin was all but annihilated during the civil war between God's people. Therefore, when Yahweh says that the rabbis had become a makshakath, profoundly corrupt, and that they were deeply mired in a slime pit of decay as in the days of Shabuw'ah, this is as bad as it can get. And when he says that he will zakar, remember and remind them of their own, persistently evil, demonstrably wrong, and deliberately depraved nature, and of their tendency to twist and distort his message, it would be wise to disassociate oneself from the Chatak, those who have led so many astray. If it is tough on you and me to read this, imagine what it must be like for Yahowah to have endured it. Like, similar to, grapes, Anab, in the wilderness where the word is questioned, Midbar 358, in the lifeless place, from my, to ponder and to the word, I found, Matzah, Yisra'el. Similar to, like, first fruit, Bikura, the early ripening, from Baka, firstborn child, of a fig tree, Bartona, in the beginning, Bersith high, first and foremost, the Torah's first word, I witnessed, I observed, your fathers, Abatim. They went to, pursued, moved toward, and associated with, Baal power, the Lord of the open way, Baal power, being receptive to Satan, the master and owner who controls the broad path, and estranged themselves by dedicating and devoting themselves, became separated by showing loyalty and respect, to that which is degrading and shameful, Bosheth, to that which is humiliating and disconcerting. And they became as, they existed as, vile, detestable, and religious, sheqers, as idolatrous, forbidden, and filthy, as defiled and abhorrent, as that which, they loved, they were attracted to, desired, showed affection for, and formed a relationship with. Hausha, he liberates, Hosea 9:10. This is filled with interesting imagery. The grapevine is the metaphor for God's chosen people. When they are rooted in his teachings and grounded in his presence, they are fruitful. The fig is the sweet fruit of success. Due to God's attentiveness and nurturing, the relationship was designed to be purposeful and enjoyable. First fruits is the third mikra. It is symbolic of being a child adopted into our Heavenly Father's family. But the northern kingdom, like almost everyone the world over, chose the Lord. Instead of loving Yahowah, they elected to worship and serve Baal, better known as Satan, the Lord God of religion. As a result, they became as detestable as the devil, as vile and defiled as Shahar. 359 Baal power is an actual place. In Bamidbar, Numbers 25, we read, While Yisra'el, camped out and remained, Yashab, in Shittim, the plague, Shittim, the people, began defiling themselves, by engaging in adulterous and unfaithful prostitution, Lazana, among, the daughters, Bath, of Mawop, who's your father, Mawop. Bamidbar, when, the people, approached, they were invited, Lakara, to the sacrifices, La Zebach, for their gods, Elohim Henna. So, the people, ate them, Akal, making pronouncements while worshipping, some even bowing down, prostrating themselves in homage, to their gods, La Elohim. Bamidbar 25:2. As a result, Yisrael, joined in by worshipping and becoming yoked, Zamad, to Baal power, the Lord of the broad and open way because they were receptive to the Lord, La Baal power. Therefore, the overwhelming resentment and frustration, of Yahowah, was kindled and set ablaze, revealing his concern and disappointment, sheqer, with, Yisrael, Yisra'el. Bamidbar 25:3. So then, Yahowah, said to, Moses, the one who draws out, Moshe, choose of your own volition to take, Lakek all, Shirl, of the leaders, Rosh, of the people, and disassociate from them, to approach, Yahowah, and do so conspicuously to reveal the counterpart to, Nejd, the son, Shemesh, such that the burning anger and righteous indignation, of 360 Yahowah, may be turned away, from Yisrael, min Yisrael. Bamidbar 25:4. Therefore, Moshe, said, unto, the Shafot, those who execute good judgment, Shafot, of Yisrael, the choice is yours to intentionally end the life of, Harag, every individual, Ishishu, who associated with, involving themselves by joining in and worshipping through shared and popular beliefs, Zamad, by approaching, Baal power, the Lord of the broad and open way, Baal power. Bamidbar, Numbers 25:5. Religion is a virus. Exceeding infections and spread by human contact, it debilitates and kills every living thing in its path. Unless it is removed from society, the people and their nation will be destroyed. Later in Dabarim, Deuteronomy 4, Moses reminds Yahweh of what happened at Baal power. So now, at this time, Yisra'el, individuals striving to engage and endure with God, Yisra'el, choose to listen, Shama, to the clearly communicated and inscribed prescriptions for living, El Ha-Kuk, and to the means to execute good judgment to correctly resolve disputes, Wa El Ha-Mishpat, which, to provide the correct path to the relationship, Asher, I am teaching and instructing you, Anoki Lamed Eth Atom, for the express purpose that you will be able to act upon them and engage based upon them. La Sa La Man, to live, to be restored and thrive, Chea. And then, Wa, you can return, being included within, Bo, even inherit, Wa Yarash, that which is associated with the land, Etz Ha-Eres, which, as a benefit of the relationship, Asher, Yahowah, Yahowah, the God of your fathers, Elohim Abatim, is giving to you, Nathan La'atam. Dabarim 4-1. 361 You should not ever add to, Lo Yazafal, the word, Hadabar, which, Asher, I am instructing you, Ankizawa Ethatam. Further, you should never subtract, Wa Lo Gara, from it, Minhu. This is so that you can closely examine and carefully consider, La Shema, the instructive conditions of the authorized agreement, Eth Mitzvah, of Yahowah, your God, Elohim Atom, which leads along the proper path to get the most out of life that, Asher, I have told you about by providing directions to you, having appointed and constituted these signs for you, by establishing the prescribed terms and instructive conditions of the authorized agreement, Anki Zawa Ethatam. Dabarim 4-2. Your eyes have seen and you have witnessed, Einatam Hara, that which Eth Asher, Yahowah, Yahowah, did, Asar, with Baal power, the Lord of enlightenment and the popular way, Bar Baal power. Indeed, KY, all of the men, Shurl Ha-Ish, who followed after, Asher Holokachar, Baal power, the Lord of the open way, Baal power, Yahowah, your God, Yahowah Elohim Atom, were exterminated, Shamit Hu, from among you, Min Kireb Atom. Dabarim 4-3. And, Wa, you, Atom, the ones who stayed in touch, remaining close and steadfast, Dabek, with, Va, Yahowah, Yahowah, your God, Elohim Atom, you are all alive today, Chaim Shurl Atom Ha-Yaum. Dabarim 4-4. You should choose to be especially observant, Ra. I have learned and now teach, Lamed, you, Eth Atom, the clearly communicated and inscribed prescriptions for living, Cook, along with the means to execute good judgment and correctly resolve disputes, Wa Mishpat, in the manner, Ka Asher, Yahowah, my God, Elohim Eni, instructed me 362 Zawa Eni, so that you could act accordingly and engage appropriately, La Sarken, in the approach, Bar Karab, to the realm, Ha-Eres, which, as a benefit of the relationship, Asher, you will be returning to and entering, Atom Bo, there along with the name, Sham, Shem, to inherit it, La Yarashai. Dabarim 4-5. So then, Wa, you can be observant, Shema, and engage, acting accordingly, Wa Sa, because, indeed, KY, this will provide you with the capacity and expertise to comprehend, Hi Chakma Atom, thereby preparing you to understand, Wa Binah Atom, in the eyes of the people, Wa Ein Ha-Am, who, Asher, listen to, Shama, all of these clearly communicated prescriptions for living, Shurl Ha-Ld. They will confess, Wa Ma, unlike any other, Rak, this family, Am, is knowledgeable and properly instructed, Shakam. And what's more, Wa, there is this Gentile, Hagawi, who has demonstrated the ability to make the connections necessary to understand so as to convey meaning, bin, to many, doing so loudly and intensely through amplification, Hagadal Hazeh. Dabarim 4-6. Indeed, when has there been, Ky my, a Gawi, Gentile, Gawi, this significant, or at least this vociferous and intense, using amplification, Gadal, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, such that he has, La Hu, God, Elohim, approaching him while forming a close relationship and imminent connection at this distant point in time, Karob El Hu, consistent with how, Ka, Yahowah, our God, Elohim Anaknu, is with us whenever we call upon him, Bar Shurl Kara Anaknu El Hu. Dabarim 4-7. So, Wa, when has there been, my, a Gawi, someone of a different ethnicity, Gawi, this vocal and intensely devoted to using amplification, Gadaul, for the benefit 363 of the relationship, Asher, such that he, Lahu, communicates the inscribed prescriptions for living, Cook, along with the way to execute good judgment regarding the means to resolve disputes, Wa Mishpat, consistently and correctly conveying everything that is part of, Zadik Ka Shurl, this Torah, teaching and guidance, Ha Torah Ha Joth, which, to identify the right way to the benefits of the relationship, Asher, I have provided, giving it to you in your presence, Anoki Nathan La Pana Atom, this day, Ha Yaum. Dabarim, words, Deuteronomy 4:8. When we expose the truth, repudiate the lies, and expunge evil religions, we live fulfilling and productive lives. Those who embrace them or tolerate them die. While Yahowah's message in this regard may seem repetitive, a great deal is at stake and his people seldom listen. Ephraim, worthless carbon, Ephraim, the heap of fruitless and unproductive ashes, will be like Kar, a bird, Ha-Oph, a winged creature, which darts about and flies away from, Yuf, its abundant reward, Kar-Baud-Hem, the honor and respect it was due, the very manifestation of its existence and power. Unable to give birth and childless, Min Yulod, without a womb, Min Beaten, removed from the source of life, there will be no source to renew life, Wa Min Aown, no capacity to conceive. Hawshah 9:11. Indeed, even if, Kym, they become great with children, raising and rearing their offspring, Gadol eth Benihem, boasting about fathering their sons, then I will bereave them, Wa Shekelhem, from Adam, Min Adam, from the first man with a neshama, conscience, as an additional, Gam, warning, Oi, to them, Lahem, for them eschewing me, withdrawing from me, and turning away, Barso Eni Minhem, for them turning 364 aside and removing themselves from me, avoiding me. Hawshah, he saves, Hosea 9:12. Birds are blessed with the ability to fly. They can nest wherever their wings will carry them upon the wind. They can also return, should they so desire, but that would not be the case with Ephraim. He flew the coop, never to return. It does not matter if there are 8,000 or 8 billion souls on the planet, because only those in the covenant will survive, just as was the case aboard the ark with 8. Apart from the source of our existence, the storms are fierce and life is fragile and fleeting. Ephraim, ashes, Ephraim, worthless carbon, I have seen associated with, Kar Asherah, saw, Tyre, a stone, so, to be bound and besieged, against the rocks and troubled, the Phoenician coastal city, planted, Shathel, in a cultivated settlement, Wa Nor, within a pasture, a homeland for sheep. And so, Wa, Ephraim, will lead, La Yatza, his children, Beni Hu, to their death, El Harag, to die. Hawshah, he frees, Hosea 9:13. As we will discover when we study the dubious and delayed authorship of the Christian New Testament, Eusebius, Constantine's propagandist and Roman Catholic apologist, wrote much of it. He is worth mentioning here because he was instrumental in propagating the myth that Tyre was built and named by the god Melkart as a favor to the mermaid, Tyros. The goddess, Astarte, from whose name Christians get Easter, was worshipped here. Zeus, manifest as a bull, was also said to have abducted the Tyrian princess, Europa, in Tyre, taking her to Crete. This is germane to Hawshah's story because Tyre was home to Jezebel, who brought the Ba'al and Asherah cults with her and worshipped them while married to Ahab. And while this brought great shame on Yisra'el, Tyre, itself, 365 would finally succumb to the ego of Alexander the Great. The religious stalwarts in Tyre would die rather than allow the Macedonian to make sacrifices to his gods in shrines devoted to their gods. Tyre plays a starring role in Ezekiel as Satan uses an over-the-top rendition of its history to reconstruct his existence, from carol to serpent. So, while Ezekiel was not a prophet, the story he tells is nonetheless essential reading. Hawshah is none too pleased with his people. And knowing that God is always fair, he states, Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of Yahowah, our Eloah, God has directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his Hayeh, existence and our Shalom, restoration, you will give to them, Nathan Lahem, you will bestow and appoint for them, what, Ma, you have been given, Nathan. So, you have decided to provide them with a womb, La Nathan Hem Rechem, it is your will to offer them a uterus, which results in miscarriage and bereavement, shekel, aborted life, and breasts which are shriveled and dry, Washadzamak, non-lactating mammary glands, suited for weaning demonic spirits. Hawshah, he protects, Hosea 9:14. When parents turn away from God, their children are stillborn. The covenant is the only way to exit this world alive and end up in a place worthy of forever. When it is rejected, there is a miscarriage of life. With all of their troublesome shepherds and inappropriate behaviors, Shul Rahem, with every miserable, ruinous, perverse, and corrupting act within the community, at Gilgal, Baha Gilgal, the wheel, a particularly religious site where the spokes of the wheel all led away from God, it is there that I came to dislike 366 them and see them as unlovable. Ky Shamsainhem, I realized that I could not put up with them and started to shun them due to their disdain for the relationship. It is because of, their evil practices, their displeasing nature and wicked actions, Roamal their immoral behavior and adverse responses which harm the relationship, dealing wantonly and ruthlessly while making fools of themselves, that I will drive them out and banish them, Garosh, I will expel them, divorcing myself of them, casting them aside and causing them to be estranged, from my house and family, min betheni, from my home and household. I can no longer love them, lo yazaf ahabhem, I will love them no more because continuing to see them as desirable is impossible. Each and every one of their religious and political leaders, their government officials and military officers, Shirl Sahem, all who govern them, everyone who is empowered and lords over others, their nobles and societal elite, all of those who rule and reign, is obstinate and rebellious, Sarah, is defiant and unwilling to change, stubborn and insubordinate. Howshah, he delivers, Hosea 9:15. While we have considered the implications previously, there are so many repercussions to the Ra family of words, we are left to determine how many of these connotations Yahowah intended to convey. A Ra is a shepherd, some of whom guide and protect the flock while others are malevolent and lead the sheep astray. With Ra, Roa, and Ra, which are spelled identically in the original text, the definitions are decidedly negative. We find shouting neighbors and loud-mouthed friends, misguided companions, evil associates, and perverse countrymen. Erroneous thinking is responsible for corrupting the 367 citizenry. Wickedness and wrongdoing bring disaster and misery, causing the people to suffer. There are several Gilgals in the Torah, the first being the final encampment before crossing the Yarden and entering the Promised Land. And it may have been here when Yahowah realized that no matter how many years he extended their time in the wilderness under the tutelage of Moseh, the Yisraelites were not going to improve with age. The Gilgal referenced here could also be the site of Shaul's coronation and of illicit religious worship. Yahowah viewed the people's clamoring for a king in the style of the Gentiles to be a repudiation of everything he had said to them and done for them. The Yisraelites had chosen to be led by men rather than God, and nothing has changed. As we have studied the children of Yisrael, one thing stands out, they have been and remain unlovable. Yahowah's relationship with Adam and Towrah was strained at times, just as it often wasn't much fun being with Abraham and Sarah, Yitzhak or Jacob. But there were more positives than negatives in those relationships to make them worthwhile and enjoyable overall. The family line took a dark turn when Jacob's sons sold their brother, Joseph, into slavery. However, since Yahowah turned their heinous act of betrayal into an opportunity to make amends, this wasn't the point of no return. It would occur 400 years thereafter, when the Hebrews thanked Moses for risking his life to spare them from the whip of a taskmaster by threatening to repay his compassion, character, and courage with conceit, criticism, and cynicism. And this attitude didn't change, even with Yahowah's direct involvement. Although, to be accurate, the Israelites became progressively worse over the years, as Howshah has been reminding us and them. 368 If it were not for the fact that he is God and, therefore, cannot renege on a promise, Yahowah would have given up on Yisrael long ago. As it is, he has spurned them, disinheriting them over the past 2,700 years, and this realization is particularly telling. Since God divorced Yisrael, with one exception, their access to the covenant is no longer differentiated from Goim. We must all be adopted by accepting Yahowah's invitations and covenant conditions. It is just that Yisrael and Yahweh will be returning because they were once considered family, but up until now, they have been Garosh, banished from the Beit, home and family of God. They are not covenant. Humankind has essentially become unlovable because of our Roa Malal, evil religious practices, displeasing nature, and adverse responses which harm the relationship. Created to know and understand, we have made fools of ourselves. While we all share the blame, the most Sarah, obstinate and rebellious are those who have sought to control others, religious, political, and military leaders. Those we are told to respect are the most disrespectful. Everyone claiming to be authorized to rule over others is adversarial to God's intent. Ephraim, ashes, Ephraim, worthless carbon, is stricken, afflicted, and destroyed. Nakah, is fatally smitten, and mortally wounded. Their root, Shorshhem, that which anchors them in the land and nourishes them, is dried up, Yabish, withered and shriveled. They will not be productive bearing fruit, a harvest, or viable descendants, Peri Bali Bali Asar. Even though, Gam Ky, they bear children, Yalod, for a while, I will destroy, Moth, I will terminate by striking a death blow to, Hyphal perfect, their treasured 369 womb, Makmad beaten hem, their preferred means to renew life. Howshah 9:16. My God, Elohim Eni, has rejected them, and he will limit his association with them, Mashem, he has spurned them because he has become averse to them, because, Ky, they have not listened to him, Lo Shama Lahu, they did not hear him. And so, Wah, they will be, Wahaya, they will exist as, Kal participle, wanderers who have been banished, Nadad, cast aside and chased away, wandering aimlessly about without directions or a guide, among, Ba, in, the the Gentile nations, Hargawim, the people from different races and places. Hausha, he saves, Hosea 9:17. When the roots die, there is no hope for the plant. It will no longer produce anything worthwhile and cannot be resuscitated. Such is the epitaph of Ephraim, representing the northern kingdom of Yisra'el. The source of life had abandoned them. Their problem is humankind's issue today. Fewer than 1 in a million are listening to Yahowah. Most are so lost, so deceived that they do not know his name or where to turn, and they have replaced Yahowah with gods of man's making. It is little wonder that Yahowah has rejected the religious, spurning them because they are averse to him. As a result, even as we approach Yahowah's return, most are wandering aimlessly, unaware that the Torah was written to guide us home.